Handle Your High with Tadayoshi. All right, welcome back to Handle Your High with me, Tadayoshi, and I got Christian Duque, one of my good friends from the East Coast, if you will. You're in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, I'm in Kentucky. I mean, but I'm from Florida, so technically still East Coast, but yeah,
maybe,
not really.
It's because when I lived in Pennsylvania, I always saw you everywhere.
Yeah.
So I kind of associate, and I even though for most people who live in Pennsylvania, they don't really consider Pittsburgh like East Coast. I consider it East Coast, but it's really kind of like Midwest, sort of East Coast. I don't know. But you have strengthaddicts.com, and you're also by strengthaddicts.com, which is a wonderful website.
Branding is so important. Yeah.
But you focus on everything in the fitness industry. You do interviews, you do articles. I love all the articles you write, by the way. There's not a lot of people in the industry that can write cogently. So I
appreciate it.
I appreciate that because it's well thought through, and a lot of stuff that's written in the industry is, and I hate to say it because I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but they're kind of written by kind of meatheads, and they really aren't really writers. You know what I mean? And go ahead.
Sorry, this is so conversational. I love it. This is not unlike any interview, or it's not an interview, but like just hanging out. But I just wanted to say real quick, thanks to Dave Palumbo, because Dave is the one that gave me my break, and he actually got it in my head to write articles. So I wrote, and they weren't just articles about like bodybuilding. Like for example, I wrote an article about transgender athletes in 2014. Which in 2014, I mean, I took a lot of shit. Can I curse on this or no?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I try not to like go over. Like,
this is podcasting, man. This is like anything goes.
Okay, cool. So I took a lot of shit for that on the boards because you're like, how dare you talk about this? It's not fair. But actually, I got some quotes, and that's one of the things about my writing. I always like to get quotes because like I don't want to just hear myself talk, And it was a really good one. I did another one on the Confederate flag. I mean, things that you would not expect to see on a bodybuilding website. And Dave had my back. He said, just write. So that was real good. And now Robert DiMaggio with IronMagazine.com, which is linked to Iron Mag Labs, I write 12 articles a month, every single month. So, it's good. It's a good place for me to write, and I get paid, which, again, we don't do this really for the money. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I could be doing 10 times, more profitable things. But at the same time, you never really want to work for free because there's something to be said about people that, free work is generally crap. You know what I mean?
You get what you pay for, right?
Right.
But also I think it's, I think that good writing, it's worthy of being paid. I mean, you shouldn't just do it for free. I think a lot of times in this industry, at least I've been in the industry for 34 years, and I know that historically the industry has not been very good to the people who contribute to it. It's my opinion. And it's because it's probably a lot of it is because in the defense of like promoters and other people in the industry, there hasn't been a lot of money involved in it in terms of like excess money to be able to go around to be able to make it lucrative. But now there is. There definitely has been now where there's a lot more opportunity for guys and gals to contribute and get paid for it, and they should. There's more than enough opportunity for that, and especially when you have something good to say and something that people are going to read. And I think you have wonderful things to say. And again, I'm an academic by heart. I can't help it. So I appreciate good writing. I appreciate good thought of somebody who doesn't just present an opinion, but presents an opinion backed up by some really good stuff. That's important. Like it's. Go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt you.
You can interrupt.
I appreciate that so much because that's very humbling. I mean, like for you to say that to me because I've looked up to you for years. And you're really honestly, there's so like no bullshit. There's two people that are very, very positive, very zen, like you and Palumbo. But Palumbo though, let's just say that Palumbo sometimes falls a little short because he's emotional like I am. I'm not here to attack Dave. I love it, but you're consistently like the most like zen like of all. So I think that's huge because in this industry that's tough.
I appreciate that. I really do. I try my hardest. And by the way, if you see me writing, it's because I take notes during all these sessions, so that when I post the subject matter, I just sort of give little blips so people can kind of get a sense of what we're talking about. But
and also like real quick too, like Dave though, again, just to be fair, Dave gets attacked a lot. So the fact that he very rarely will snap, and I'm one of the people that make him snap. I love him. Well, when I was on Iron Debate, which I love Iron Debate because it's like everybody's like, oh my god, it was a train wreck, but the train wrecks are the ones you remember. If I would have gone on there and made nice with Romano and Johnny Styles and all that, I mean, it would just been like whatever, but the train wrecks are the ones that you
well, everybody wants to see that stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I took a phone call on there. I hung up on that.
I love it. Well, the funny thing is, I've been on that Iron Debate a couple of times, and Dave stopped inviting me, and I think it's because he's joked with me about it because he and I are good friends, of course.
He's awesome.
But it's because everybody likes me, and he's like, I think he thinks I'm trying to be politically correct, trying to be amenable to everybody there, and I don't like to. But it's because I authentically see the value in all the perspectives. I don't have to agree with them all, but it's hard for me to. I'm not going to be one of those people that's just like in your face, kind of a It's just not my way, and I think there's other ways. But so I think I'm less exciting. But here's the funny thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been on Iron Debate for a couple of years, but I still get people going, "Hey, well, you should tell Dave to have you back on." I mean, all the time. I'm like, "Well," I said, "He's got to invite me." I said,
"Right."
Like, yeah, I love your perspective. Right. One of the common, I think, comments that I get from people is that they like my perspective, that it's they can appreciate it, and I think it's because I focus on, like you said, a more Zen sort of approach to life, which is neutrality
and you're very real too. I mean, you're very, very real. And again, part of what is, I think, interesting about media, and that's really what I am. You're a bodybuilder, and you've come so close to getting your pro card. And again, I mean, it's definitely in the future, I think. But me, I'm media, and I think one of the things that really pisses people off about me is that I never compete. I'd like to, but I'm a fat ass. I never competed. One day
you're also 6'5".
But I've been in shape, but I've never been in shape anywhere near this like stage or anything like that. And one day I would like to do it, but it's just I am really like a super fan, really. But I just got I think I went to as the I feel like I hit the ceiling of being a fan, and then I started writing, and then I started covering shows. And now I feel like, in a very, very small way, I'm helping to grow the sport. But people still, they believe that you have to be a bodybuilder to comment on bodybuilding topics. And that's not really, I don't think that really holds a lot of water. Just like I don't think that you have to be a bodybuilder in order to be a great contest prep guru, because there are some that never competed and are geniuses.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think to kind of piggyback on that, I would go so far as to say that there is a perspective that comes from a non-competitor that only a non-competitor could bring as an aficionado of the sport. So the level of appreciation that being a competitor, that's where I started out as an athlete. Even though today, I hate to tell you this, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I retired a couple years ago when I became a pro judge. I promised Jim that I wouldn't compete anymore.
I didn't know that.
We didn't think, he asked me to not compete anymore. If it was what I wanted, and I said, yes, is what I want. And I had done what I wanted to do in the sport competitively. I'd won a national title, and I was good with that. I never, at that stage of my life, at 44, I'm 48 now, I didn't want to compete on a pro stage. I lost that desire because it had taken me long enough to get to where I was, and I knew what I was going to have to do to continue to go on. More drugs, more this, and I was just like, I want to live a long life, healthy life.
Right.
And I kind of those aspirations I had passed me. I didn't really want them anymore. But and I wanted to, like you, I wanted to contribute. And I think the level of contribution that a competitor has is one perspective that's offered. So when I write or when I present a perspective about a competitor, a competition, or whatever it is, anything in the industry, it comes from my point of view as a coach, as an athlete, and as a fan. But the fan is always always in the background. I can't help it but come from these other two perspectives that really dominate my experience. Whereas you come from predominantly a fan and a contributor, a media person. So that's a different perspective. And I think there's value in that because it's a unique perspective that you can truly have a more third person perspective. I'm in the trenches. I've been in the trenches, and I can't disassociate myself from that. Right? And so that's going to give me some bias that I'm not going to be able to come to the table with, that you're not going to come to the table with. So both opinions are, I think, needed and valuable. So I think that people are short-sighted if they say, oh, well, it's not, we want everyone to be competitors. I will say this, that I did when I became a judge. I remember pro athletes would come up to me at the shows and go, "Hey, Tad, I'm really so glad to see you on the panel. It really made me smile when I looked down and saw you because you're the only one that smiles back at us." And they knew that they said, "I knew you were a competitor and you know what we were going through," because a lot of them feel like half the judges were never competitors. Although many of them were, they were just competitors, years ago. I was more contemporary to them, so they felt good about that.
And I think there's also like a paying your dues in that respect too. And I think that you see it with you see it with Palumbo, and you see it with Ron Harris. In other words, with like three guys that like literally were like a hair away from getting a pro card, like literally by the skin of their teeth away from getting a pro card, but yet they continued on their path, growing the sport. Not like, some people whine, they jump federations, they say all sorts of negative things. You guys didn't. You kept trucking. You know what I mean? And people really respect that. I mean, athletes especially, they really respect that. That's one of those things that it's rare.
This is a tough sport, right? Like, it's not an easy sport. Any sport that competes at this level, like whether it be tennis or golf or bodybuilding or powerlifting or any industry really, at the highest levels, when you're trying to vie for the top positions of whatever it is that it's tough, and there's a lot of competition. And I don't think, I've done a lot of soul searching over the years, and I went to seminary, I studied, I'm very big into ethics and philosophy. I incorporate mindfulness and different things into my own coaching and my own life, as well as my athletes' lives. And I write about it, of course, you know that. And what's critical to me in my life experience, and I try to impress this on other people, and part of what the show's about, is that it's wonderful to have these destinations in life, like pro cards and awards and victories and how much money I'm going to make, or what car I'm going to drive, or whatever the reward or whatever the circumstances that we're seeking. Those things are wonderful goals to have in our life, but I think for me at least, it makes a lot more sense when I put my life in perspective with my goals, and I say, okay, the goal keeps me directed towards where I want, but what should be driving me every day is the joy of the journey, right? Like, it's me the daily process.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when I look back on my career, just the career part as an athlete, me competing, dieting, and I did it since 1989 was the first time I stepped on stage. And the last time was like 2000, 15, I think it was. And from those years, 30 years almost, it was when I reflect back on the greatest moments, like it was, and I won lots of awards. I got a sword on my wall back here. I got and it's not the awards, it's not the titles. I hardly remember those. What I remember, it's the dieting, it's the getting up early, it's the cheat meals that I had, it's the camaraderie I had with my athlete, my friends and my clients and my competitors. It was all that stuff. It was the process of walking through it day to day, being excited, anticipating a show. And it's like,
yeah, and it's crazy because I mean, like, I'm trying to like not like I don't know the diet part, but I know the media part, and it's crazy because like at the North Americans or at the Teen Collegiate Masters Nationals, I'm there with JM, and JM, I'm gonna tell you something, like, some people think like honestly, I just, all BS aside, some people think I'm a little bit of a suck up to the NPC. But the thing is I'm not a suck up. I'm just very loyal, and I get to see everything, and I get to see the quality of the shows. I get to see how the expediters work because I'm backstage. I get to see how the judges work. I get to see how everything works, and I'm a huge fan of that, and I really want to grow that. And going back to JM and me, and JM and I, whatever, depending on the context, that guy put so many steps on. Like, like people count their steps on their phone or whatever, or their watch, and he's like everywhere. And I'm the same way, and I'm like literally running everywhere. And it's a real adrenaline rush. Like I was telling Jack and Antitone, got a name drop in this industry, but anyways, I was telling Jack and Antitone, like, I can't wait for your St. Louis Pro because I'm going to be like all over the place because it's like an adrenaline thing, like you were talking about. You were talking about as a competitor, I'm talking about as media, but it's just like I actually get sad when the show is over. Like people are like, when is this night show going to end? I actually am sad when it's over because I just want it to keep going.
I totally get it. I really, that's still probably the best part about living in this industry. Like I remember back in the 80s when I was really sort of starting to go. I went to my first show in 1987. And it was Pat Downing's West Coast. It was the Oregon.
It wasn't the West Coast.
No, it was the Eastern Oregon Championships, I think. Okay. Anyways, he put that show on. He was the chairman of the NPC in Oregon at the time, and and I remember I got the first ticket. I got seat A1. I mean, I bugged him for fucking 6 months. He's like, Dad, don't worry. Seat. He's like, Dad, don't worry. I'm going to give you a seat when I get it. And I remember I had this 35 millimeter camera I'd gotten for my birthday for Christmas a couple years back when I was in high school. I was a senior in high school in that year. And I took pictures of every bodybuilder that was on that. I didn't know these people. I didn't know any of them. I was just so excited to be there. It was my first show. I mean, I was like, man, this is going to be me someday. I'm going to be up here. And that feeling of excitement never left me. And I remember when I got out of college and I was in industry and I was helping athletes on my spare time. I remember I decided about when I was shortly thereafter, I had some success, quite a bit of success in industry, but I really wanted to do this full time. And I remember turning my focus towards it and saying, you know what, I quit. I worked for Oracle. I was a top sales guy there, and I quit. And I remember people thinking I was nuts. I mean, this was during the internet boom when it was just starting. I was selling 7-figure deals, and if you know anything about the enterprise software sales industry, I was getting paid lots of money, like 7 figures, and I just walked away from it because I just wasn't happy. And it was because what bodybuilding gave me was an excitement to get up every day. I was excited to get up every day, and I tell people that's the secret, that's the magic to success.
But I think one of the things I get out of talking to you, and one of the things I'm gonna get out of this show too, I go off on a lot of tangents too, by the way. So it's
okay. But that's what the show's about.
Yeah, but it's a lot about balance, because I am a lawyer, I'm licensed, I have an office, and it's almost like sometimes I have to remind myself that I'm a lawyer, because I love being a lawyer, but it's so easy for me to just get totally, I don't want to say distracted, because to me bodybuilding is not a hobby. It really makes me happy. Like, in fact, on Saturday I'm covering a posing clinic in Columbus, and I'm trying to find like different things, because my most miserable time of the year is January, February, and that's first week of March. There's no shows. You know what I mean? So there's nothing.
What do I do?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And it's not just to go to it. Like I went to a powerlifting meet. God bless them. The nicest guys. It's not the same. It's not like it's not the fact of doing interviews or taking pictures. It's bodybuilding. It has to be. And if it's not NPC or IFB Pro, I don't know anything else. That's the only thing I want to know. And it's like when the season is off, it's like you can't. So it's tough. But the thing is, though, where I was going with that, though, is I think it's all about a balance, because like I do want to do more of the lawyering stuff and more of the bodybuilding stuff. And one thing I do want to say too, really, really fast, is like the last 2 years have been crazy, because there's 3 people. So Artie Caldwell Jr. is the first person. He won the 2014 Team Universe. He's completely natural, IFB Pro. He's amazing. And he got me to talk to the promoters about getting hotel rooms, like when I go, which is huge. And he got me to talk more to the promoters. Because I used to go and cover all these shows. Even Kevin Levrone would say, my gosh, you're at all these shows, you're paying it all out of pocket. You're going, go in the poorhouse. So he really got me into talking to the promoters and about really marketing what it is that I do, all the interviews and the candidates and all that. And the promoters wanted me there, and I never knew it because I never spoke to him. So thanks to Artie for that. And then Maria Gincola, she's out of Cleveland, and she really got me into the idea about 6 months ago of contacting companies, anywhere from like the back of this shirt is from the Nationals, like Blackstone Labs, and coaches, and like Phoenix Fit Bars, and these different companies to sponsor my coverage. So that brought money in for me to do what I do and buy the equipment and maintain it, and then the promoters put me up. So that all helped. And then Gary Udit, without Gary Udit, I would have absolutely nothing, because Gary has been like legit my mentor. He's my friend, he's my mentor, and but he is like, without him I'd have absolutely nothing. He's the Mid-Atlantic Zone chairman, IFB head judge, and and he's all over the world. He's been in Iceland, Romania, Mexico. He's just everywhere. So I had to include that in there because that's really shaped. The last 2 years have been just completely different for me.
That's great, man. That's awesome. I think that you have a real value for the industry. You bring it low, and I think it's important because a lot in the past, we've had some pretty decent people. Like I liked it when Dave Palumbo was covering shows and stuff like that. But he seems to rub a lot of people the wrong way sometimes.
Well, and look, and I hope Steve doesn't get upset for me for saying this, but so I was talking to Blackman the other day on the phone, and there's no like, and this might come as a shock to the RX camp, but nobody at MD talks about RX. Like nobody the feud on that side is just not there, and that's not because I worked at MD or anything. It's just like, or for MD or whatever, however you're gonna say it, it's just not there. But I think. So MD still does a lot of contest coverage, not a lot, but they're still around. NPC News, they're everywhere, thank God. But there's only one JN, right. So he can only be so many places. You know what I mean? Mandis Buckle does a fantastic job also. Maximum Muscle Report and George Brown, they do a great job. See, and then of course Kit Sanderson, MD Latino, which I love him. But the thing is, you don't see as much media at shows as you used to, and that's a little sad because I think the competitors really deserve the media. They deserve the interviews. They deserve the spotlight. Obviously, NPC News Online is like the gold standard, but not everyone can be on NPC News Online because you have to win. You've got to be the best of the best. Whereas me, I'll interview people. I've interviewed people that don't even place because my interviewing criteria is a little bit different. If I see something, sometimes it's not even a physique thing. Sometimes I hear a story or WrestleMania, for example. I interviewed him. Like in 2013. He's amazing. He's awesome.
I like him.
And he didn't even understand why I was interviewing because I guess he didn't feel like his physique was on point. That he had just started. He was working with Lieberman and all that. But I just saw something. I had a really strong feeling. And year after year, I'd say, bro, you're going to go pro. You're going to go pro. You're going to be amazing. Now he's a pro, and now he's amazing. So the thing is, it's like I just see something in people. But I think with Dave, the whole tangent back to the original story is that he likes doing, videos in his studio more. I feel like the contest coverage isn't really there anymore.
No, it's hard.
And his credibility is through the roof. I mean, Dave could fetch a couple grand just to I don't know why the thing went off. A couple grand just to do a 1 minute spot on a commercial. I mean, he's paid his dues. But yeah, I guess he's chosen to do shows instead of contest coverage. I don't know.
I think from what I understand, I could be wrong, but from my conversations with Dave in the past, it just doesn't make fiscal sense to be able to cover the shows because a lot of the promoters don't really want to. They're not really that, it costs him too much money to be able to cover the show when he gets back for it. He doesn't see the return. And whereas he can take that same time and money invested into the shows that he's doing and it'd be lucrative for him. It'd be worth his time. I totally get that. And quite frankly, he gets hassled a little bit from time to time at some of the big shows in terms of, I say hassle, I don't know if it's really hassled, but he sometimes gets blocked from doing the interviews he wants. He at the USA's at whatever. There was several incidences in the last 5 or 7 years where he kind of felt like, and I don't know if it doesn't really matter who said, she said, whose fault it was, whatever. But the whatever the case is, he finds himself in a position sometimes where his trip isn't as useful as he would like it to be, and I think it was just too much aggravation.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Nationals last year, I mean,
did he go last year?
No, but nobody gave him permission to go backstage.
Right.
And I wasn't there, but let's just say nobody gave him permission to go backstage. And the thing about it is that at the national level shows, it's pretty understood. NPC News Online only backstage. If you're Strength Addicts, Maximum Muscle Report, RxMuscle, MD. MD Latino, you find a spot. You find a spot that's not backstage, and you do your interviews. At a Jim show, at Jim Mannion's show, our president's show, I did interviews with Dexter Jackson and Kevin Levrone and anybody I wanted to. I had my own little spot there, and sometimes what I do at the other shows is I will do interviews with the overall winners, and I'll give it to NPC News Online because to have my work there is huge.
Absolutely.
Know what I mean? But the thing with him too, when you said like he rubs some people the wrong way. I mean, I don't know. Like I think though, like the Nationals was like an interesting situation, and honestly, I think that he could have come back. I mean, I from what I understand, he was even offered to come back, but he chose to do social media in the hallway and whatever.
Like I said, I think for Dave, he probably thinks that there's his energy is best spent somewhere else. Doing the things, and quite frankly, it's to his best benefit. He's doing stuff he likes.
Yeah, I have to say, I studied the hell out of Dave Palumbo. Like, and he was a huge inspiration on me. Like, I've heard through the grapevine, and actually, we were just texting the other night because for like some business stuff. But anyways, like, I've heard from some people that are close to him that he doesn't feel that I'm grateful to him for giving me my break, and I definitely am. And I wouldn't have had an opportunity without him, which is huge. And I wrote a bunch of Muscle in the Mornings, which is great. Muscle in the Morning, I mean, that's an amazing show. Every day Dave will wake up and he will do that show, and whether you love him or you hate him, I love him, but whether you love him or you hate him, you watch that show. It's like Howard Stern. People used to say, "Oh, I hate Howard Stern," like he's so out there, and you're listening to him.
By the way, Howard Stern, I know Dave really looks up to Howard Stern, the stuff he did on I guess the 60 Radio or his show that he had for so many years. I don't know if he still has it. I don't know. Does Howard Stern still have a show?
And he's got his own TV station. And the beauty of what Dave does and Ron and you and everybody is that there's no FCC. I mean, FCC doesn't care about the internet, so you can basically say whatever you want. You know what I mean? And that's huge because the folks on radio, they're so limited, even politically. I mean, I know that you want to talk about politics also. Like they can't say whatever they want.
That's what I like about podcasting and what I like about the internet, especially podcasting, because podcasting is really the last bastion of free speech, in my opinion, where you can really have the flexibility and freedom to say what you like. Because there's nobody when you have a radio station or when you have a TV show or something that really is where you have sponsors and all these. Then all of a sudden you're at the behest of some of these people. You want to please them. Because you don't want your money being yanked from you. You don't want and I that's why I don't take much credibility with like any of the news stations, CNN, you name it, man. Like there's not all the credibility there. Like I don't even especially with all the in the previous year in the last couple of years. What's really come to light, and I would love your perspective on this, is this idea of fake news that everyone's just saying, giving opinions, but nothing like everyone's saying this and saying this, and they're saying this is the facts and this is the facts, but when reality could be something completely different. And what most people don't realize today is that really we're in a new space of news where we have to do our own due diligence. I think that's.
I mean, when I was at the whole fake news thing is such a crock because I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders. I mean, pretty much every person I meet in bodybuilding is a hardcore Republican. Well, I'm a hardcore leftist, But the thing is that I mean, it was so the whole thing it was like Hilarie was supposed to be president. You know what I mean? It didn't matter about Bernie. It didn't matter about Trump. It was almost like it was like in the cards for her. Like she was supposed to be president in 2016. No matter what she did, she could have. She did. She destroyed a bunch of emails, 10,000 of them under an FBI inquiry. Anybody else would be like thrown in jail for that. She got away with it. You know what I mean? She had knowledge of the questions at the debates. I mean, she basically broke every rule that you could imagine, and she still got it. And then nobody ever expected Trump to win. I don't like Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter by any means. I know that Robert DiMaggio and a lot of other people think that I am. I'm an independent. That's the thing, and I think independents they like Trump's and they like Bernie's. Just because of the fact that they don't, Trump defeated 17 candidates. He had to, even when it was basically his for the taking, you had this Ted Cruz guy that could have potentially taken it even by one. If he had been one delegate shy, they were going to throw out everything and have a revote at the GOP, And there's a lot of Republicans that didn't like Trump. Arnold, we love Arnold for bodybuilding and movies, and he's a great politician, but Arnold can't stand Trump. You know what I mean? John Kasich didn't even go to the convention. He's the governor of Ohio. Trump was up against a lot of establishment, and he won. And so I respect that. But I mean,
I respect the accomplishment. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the. What I find most disturbing about, and I don't, me, I don't focus on the things like I'll say it on air again. I never stand against anything. I stand for so many things. Because I believe that standing against things is a negative perspective. Although I think that I have nothing against people that do. I just personally don't. I'd rather put my energy towards things that I stand for. Like, for instance, I don't stand against racism, but I stand for equality. I stand for giving equality to everybody. That's just an example. So I don't stand against Trump. I support any president we would have, whether it be Hillary or whether it be Trump. But what bothers me is what it feels like, the atmosphere to me. I'm watching Trump on the news talk about what he had the address just a couple of days ago, and he's talking about guarding America. And it's like, wow, this sounds awfully fucking fascist.
Well, even tonight he had his 9-minute speech from his desk,
I didn't hear it. I didn't know. I didn't want to get aggravated. But what was it about?
It was like a recipe for a hate crime. You know what I mean? He was like, these. He didn't want to call them illegals. Because that's xenophobic. He would never say that, of course. But he's like, these illegal migrants, or I don't know what he said. They've committed reprehensible acts, and he actually
like trying to live. It's reprehensible. You're trying to live. God damn it.
He noted 4 cases. He didn't give names. He said, an Air Force person was stabbed to death, and he said someone in Georgia was murdered and beheaded. I mean, just like, and he's like, I'm here, like you said, to protect America and the American family. How much American blood has to be lost because of these people?
Oh my God.
And then the classic one where he basically turns oppressed versus oppressed is he basically said, and the ones that are really suffering the most are our Black and Hispanic citizens whose jobs are being taken by these people.
Whose jobs are being taken? Oh my God, if that's not stereotypical, I don't know what is.
Yeah,
I mean, forget about trying to win votes.
And it's insane. And of course, he can't back up any of it. But it's like, the thing about it is that, and also the fact that he shut the government down. But he's got to be, he's at his wit's end. He wants this wall. And what's crazy about it is
I don't get the wall. I don't get it. It's not going to solve anything. It's just going to cost us money.
Yeah, I don't even think he gets it. I think at this point, it's really just a pride thing. And
it's like, I said I wanted to do this. I need to follow through, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it's a crazy $5 billion pissing match. It's a pride thing because $5 billion is what it's going to cost.
Well, he wants to spend $5 billion on a wall, but he wants to shut the government down.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And walls don't work. I mean, you see what the Israelis do in Gaza, and the Hamas guys. They have all sorts of tunnels. I mean, you just tunnel under it. You know what I mean? Just can't.
Again, the wall is the epitome of standing against something in my book. It's the epitome. It's the physical representation of what I mean when I say I stand against nothing, because all that does, when you put a force against something, what happens is an equal amount of force comes against you. It's natural. That's what happens in the universe. So what you do is you apply your energy towards the things that you want to give more momentum to. Let's give momentum to things like joy and love and peace and all these things that every one of us treasures. I can't imagine somebody treasuring war and conflict and these guys. So let's not put our focus there. I get that sometimes we have to address those issues, and because it's a world where we're gonna have to address some of these issues sometimes, but we don't have to be the ones to instigate. That's my opinion. Again, I'm only one person's opinion, but I do think that it's the epitome. The wall is the epitome of this standing against. And you're right. There's so many ways around this. It's not a fix for anything. But what it does do is it rallies people. What bothers me again also is this idea that when you hear a president or a leader, a world leader, demonizing somebody or making enemies, they did that with the Jews, and that's what Nazi Germany did. You had to dehumanize the person. Once you dehumanize the person, this race or this group of individuals, then you can marginalize them, then you can oppress them, then you can really, really do egregious things. And that's what I feel is kind of going on. Done it to Muslims, did it to Jews. The world has done it to many different peoples. It's done it to, you name the person, the group of people. It's been done in some fashion, way, shape, or form throughout history. We're repeating this process. I feel like it feels like that. It feels like, okay, we're just trying to repeat this process, and it's not a progressive thing. We're not progressing. We're not becoming more. This isn't an enlightened perspective. This is a scared perspective.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And what's crazy is that there's a concept. I think people believe that in the end, the right thing, the right prevails in the end. That people have a conscience, and that in the end, the right guy, the good guys win, and the good cause wins. But that's not always the case. I mean, if you look at for example, like desegregation of schools, I mean, that didn't come from a president or Congress or even the majority of people. It came from a court decision. You know what I mean? You look at abortion rights, again, court decision. So really, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, even gays and lesbians getting married, court decision. So it's the majority sometimes gets it wrong. And what I'm trying to say with that is, when you have a populist, and Trump is definitely a populist. I don't think Bernie is a populist. Bernie's a socialist, a democratic socialist.
What do you mean by populist?
basically someone that says things that either people want to hear or something, or it's a person that makes people think they want to hear it. So in other words, it's just a lot of, something like that, but just like a lot of like empty rhetoric, kind of like make America great again, real vague, real
like,
vague.
We're not great? Tell me what it was like when we were great. Like,
when did we stop being great? You know what I mean? And what you see with that is you see it in hats and shirts, and it's a real identifying factor. You see it with Republican
it's a rally cry,
red.
Right?
You'll never see. Yeah, nobody wears MAGA hats or shirts in a blue shirt. It's always in a red shirt. It's like a marketing coup, you know what I mean? And the thing about it is if you keep saying it, it becomes ingrained in the culture.
That's
you know what I mean? And that's really what populism's all about. And that's fine. I mean, it's fine. It sells cars, it sells movie tickets, all that. But when you, like you said, with the Jews in Germany, even with Muslims here in America after 9/11, they were scapegoated. I mean, they were bullied, they were harassed, demonized,
and really stereotyped.
And less than 1% of Muslims were even identify with that radical crap. You know what I mean? Not some people say 1%. 1% is also hugely inaccurate. I mean, it's like a fraction of 1%. But yet the 99, like 8 whatever percent, like you said, got demonized. I mean, even Sikhs got demonized. They're not even Muslims. You know what I mean? But it just, that's what it, that's the fear that I have and a lot of people have, and a lot of Republicans have it too, because he's not exactly riding with full Republican support either. I mean, he might get impeached.
Oh, really? You think so?
I think so. I mean, the thing is that like Clinton got impeached, so he might get impeached. They're not going to convict him. In other words, the Senate isn't going to seal the deal. But I mean, if he got impeached, I mean, that'd be pretty bad. Like again,
so what's the ramifications of being impeached if there's no functional consequences?
The process is pretty demoralizing. I mean, it was
didn't seem to affect Clinton's popularity or his career afterwards.
But you know what? But Clinton, I think Clinton had the best of both worlds, because even though he had Ken Starr and a lot of the things that Clinton had, like his skeletons in the closet, were his own doing. I mean, the Monica Lewinsky thing is like, that's pretty vile. I mean, that's
to me, man. To me, when I heard all that, I remember all this coming out, and I remember thinking to myself,
they leave the light on for you. I mean, he could have gone to Motel 6 or something, but he had to do it in the Oval Office.
I get it. I get why people were upset about it, but what I was always telling people was like, really, did you think anything less was going on? Did you think this dude didn't want to get his dick sucked? Come on, man. Come on. Like, every president's probably gotten their dick sucked in the Oval Office.
Right. And he probably had a bucket of KFC chicken there. He was like one step away from heart attack. You'd see him jogging in his jogging suit full of shit. He's like
And then my next question would be, look, man, if you were the president, wouldn't you want to do this? But I get it. I get what we try to hold our leaders to different standards, just like we hold our athletes to a higher standard. But it's not really realistic for us to do that.
Also, I mean, his testosterone levels were probably a lot higher than his predecessors. I mean, George Bush was like a dinosaur, and Reagan was a dinosaur.
I don't know if Reagan was working, man. I think the last 2 years of his whole
it was Nancy.
It was all Nancy. Yeah, he was eating jelly beans, man. I don't know what the hell he was doing.
but yeah, but the thing though is like, I mean, we do hold him to a higher standard in that, and that's true. But like, if he got impeached, it would it would put the country through hell. I think the one insurance policy that he does have is that his vice president is so right wing that nobody would ever want Trump to go away. Like, they would, because like Pence is like really, I
don't know much about Mike Pence. I mean, he seems like. Because he's got weird energy.
100% establishment guy. Okay. He's such an establishment guy that he actually voted for Trump, but he endorsed Ted Cruz because it was the right thing to do by the GOP.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's a straight up and establishment guy. 100%.
I'm just doing my job.
Just doing my job. He voted for Trump, but he had to endorse Cruz because that was like, the GOP did not want Trump, and that's why I respect the guy. I mean, I respect him, even though like, like large percentages of I hate to say my people, but like my people like think he's a fascist, but the thing is like, yeah, like, but I mean, like the TPP, they had the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Okay.
So it was like another NAFTA kind of thing. And we were all the Bernicrats, we were like, really, really, really trying to get Hillary to block it because it would have hurt America. America would have lost. America always loses in those trade deals. Like NAFTA, Canada and Mexico, they did great. We got screwed, and Hillary was all for it. And then right at the convention, she said she'd block, because Hillary will say whatever she has to say to get your vote. I mean, she's a very, I can't stand her. I actually didn't vote for her. I voted Green Party, Jill Stein. Anyways, but
I would have voted for Bernie.
Yeah, no, I would have, but he, but see, that's the thing. Like, I gotta be honest.
So what happened
with
with Bernie? Like, why did he fizzle out?
Well, he fizzled out honestly because he wasn't Trump. If we would have had a Trump, see, I'm so envious of the Trump supporters because you see when they had the 17 candidates up on stage, they said who here would run independent. In other words, if you didn't get the GOP nomination, would anybody here run? And he raised his hand. You know what I mean? The other 16 were like, no, if we don't get the nomination, we'll bow down and we'll support. No, but he didn't. And so Bernie's wife, she wanted him to keep running at third party. Now, in this country, we don't actually really have a democracy. We have this electoral college crap. And, I don't know if you remember Ross Perot.
I remember. I voted for Ross Perot.
Yeah, everything Ross Perot said, that big-eared, short guy, everything he said came true.
Self-made man. I respect it.
100%. And everything he said came true. NAFTA, GATT, everything. And he got close to 20 million votes. I don't know why this thing keeps going. I don't know if you hear that or not.
Nope,
it's like a buzzer.
No.
Oh, you don't hear it? Perfect. Awesome. That's good. Because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So Ross Perot got nearly 20 million votes, and he got 0 electoral votes. 0. And as we've seen, Al Gore got more votes, popular votes, than Bush. But in this country, the electoral vote is what determines the president.
You know why that is, right?
I mean, I've heard varying theories that the founders didn't trust the people, and they wanted the small states.
It had a lot to do with the way they saw the common man and woman and how their ability to judge what was right for the overall country. And they wanted the only check and balance I believe that they felt was justified was they had confidence in themselves.
And going back to populism, that's probably what the founders were scared of, because populism, and again, I don't want to be like classist, but populism, and it's not even really classist because it doesn't have to do with how much money you make, but more so with how much education you have. Because money and education aren't like on the same. I mean, I know people think they are, but they're not. You can be like really poor and super enlightened, and really rich and rock stupid, But popular. Yeah.
I know some people like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like populism really goes to that, that sort of like whip people's emotions, manipulate kind of thing, and so maybe. But yeah, so Ross Perot got nearly 20 million votes, and he didn't get a single electoral vote. So if Bernie had gone third party, the same would have happened. And interesting, President Bush has passed away, the Bush Senior, right. And I read in a couple of articles where it said that for years after the '92 election, you could not say Perot's name around him. Like that's how much he disliked Perot. Because really what Perot did. I think he ran because of his convictions, but indirectly he got Clinton elected because most of the votes that he shaved off weren't off of Clinton; they were off of Bush, and that's what
I remember. He was at that one college, and what I felt was his big mistake was he went to that college and he made one comment. He said, "You people," and he was talking about minorities. And do you remember this? He was like, and you people, and he didn't mean it in a bad way, but he just. Yeah. That was in the 90s, during the time of political correctness was really, really being in vogue. And it was like, you people. And I'm like, wow, man, that's not the thing to fucking say.
No. And it's also a generational thing too, because like generationally that comment would not have, really, I mean, they it's not even like the word colored, for example, which 100 years ago, I mean, even the NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I mean, 100 years ago, the word colored was part of I mean, and then of course it became less favored, and now no one uses it. It's I wouldn't necessarily call it a slur, but nobody uses it. In South Africa, for example, it's an actual ethnicity, which
Right.
is which is actually a third of the population identifies under that, and that's their ethnicity. That if you ask them what are you, that's what they would say. There's black, there's white, there's colored, there's Afrikaans.
I asked my brother this question because my brother, he's a professor, and he writes on racism and ethnic identity. I said, what's the proper terminology? And I think the proper terminology now is person of color. So so they're using this again, although it goes in waves, I'm sure. Like sometimes.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of very
But I will say it refers to not just black people, but people like myself who has Asian descent, anybody who's of non-white, sort of like, who you could, if you identify with another group, you can call yourself a person of color. But I guess to me, it's just words. It's just, but it's the way you use it, right? Has, like if you can use any words meanly,
right? No, that's true.
with ill intent.
It's true.
And you just don't want to demean.
No, 100%. But I mean, but to go back to your original question, yeah, if Bernie had run though, I mean,
it would have.
I think what happened was he was cheated. You know what I mean? I think a lot of
that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was cheated. I feel like the WikiLeaks thing has proved it too.
It's too bad that biggest. It seems to me, and I hate to interrupt you, but it really brings up for me one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I wanted your perspective on this, being a lawyer and being so involved in being politically aware. And I'm not as politically aware as you are, but this is what I consider old world politics. This is the way the way we elect officials today. Not just the Electoral College, not just the presidency, but also in all other ways, the political process, the way the political process works today versus what could be something new. And I think that we have to get away from, I would like to see a day where you and I, if we have a good idea and people have confidence in our abilities, we should be able to go, regardless of how much money or political or social standing we have, we should be able to go and run for office and be elected on our own merits.
I think that's huge. And I think the biggest, but one last thing I wanted to say about
sure.
Bernie real fast is so we have the Electoral College at the election level nationally, right?
Right.
But in the Democratic Party, we had the superdelegates, which was like an electoral college within an electoral college. So in other words, you had to, so like in states like Kentucky, where we split it down the middle, half. I mean, her people got 0.2% more than us. She got all the superdelegates. And then in some states where Bernie actually won the majority, she would still get the superdelegates because the superdelegates weren't bound to vote the way the people voted. So they could vote however they wanted. And the superdelegates were important people in the party. The governors, the senators, the DNC officials. So they had, and what's interesting, last thing about that, so that's the superdelegate. That's a corruption of that. The delegates at the national level, they're supposed to vote, the ones for president, they're supposed to vote the way of the people, but they don't have to. Like there have been examples where they haven't. Like in the one that I always point out is 76, because in 76 it was Reagan and Carter. No, it was Ford and Carter. But Reagan tried to run against Ford, who was a sitting president. He tried to take the nomination from him, and there was a delegate that loved Reagan so much that they voted for Reagan, even though he wasn't in the race anymore. It was Carter and Ford. So that just goes to show you that it's a strange situation. But I think in terms of what you're saying, which I think is great, the most important thing to do for your idea and my idea and anyone's ideas that are good to actually have a chance is finance. Because the parties, these PACs, these lobbies, they have so much money. And what's crazy is they never lose because they buy Republican and Democrats. So whoever wins, it doesn't matter because they win. You know what I mean? I
think you hear this a lot in the political space over the last, gosh, I've heard it for over 20 years. You got to get rid of this. Some of this you got to redo campaign finance. How do we finance these campaigns, elections? How do we finance these politicians running for office? And I think that's an important issue. I think that nobody should be able to. I don't know. I'm kind of against the fact that you should be able to individually contribute. I think it should go into a fund that could be equally distributed. So that way, you and I have an equal opportunity to hear good ideas, to hear any idea, whether it's a bad idea or a good idea from anybody. You know what I mean?
And I think a strong word in there is hear. I mean, the fact is, to hear and see the candidates is huge. You know, the last time that we saw someone that wasn't a Republican or a Democrat was Ross Perot in '92, and you saw how that went. I mean, like 20 million people said we don't want the two mainstream parties. So a big part of it is the media, which the two parties control, and a big part of it is the money, which the two parties control. The two parties don't want to let go, and that's the problem. And so you've got the libertarians, which have amazing ideas. And I don't even like when people say that libertarians are right wing, because they're really not. But I mean, if you actually had to force them, you had to like force them into like a spot, it would be the right. But they're not truly a right wing party. And the Greens aren't truly a left wing party either, because since when does the left own the right to protect Mother Earth?
This highlights one of my basic issues with any party system. No matter if it's when we talk about politics in our country, we have left wing, right wing. We got these different parties, political parties, and they're usually associated with certain beliefs or certain understandings in terms of what they support, whether it be on abortion to gun control to whatever. And I've never been one that really likes this, because I have views that are in all the camps. You know,
you wouldn't like it, just like I wouldn't like it. It's almost like a wall, almost like the wall we were talking about before, and the fact that you don't say that you're against racism, but you're for race equality. It's like it's a negative. It's like
right.
By saying there's a right and a left, you're creating divisions. Like
exactly.
you're making people.
You're making me fit people in a box. You have to be in this box, and no, I'm not in that box. I share some ideas with that box, but I don't share all those ideas. As a matter of fact, I share much of from everybody, and I think a lot of people, common Americans who vote, are like this. I rarely meet somebody.
Right. No, and I feel like, not to get too deep, but because people are going to think we're trying to I don't know, but I feel like from a very young age we're made to believe that, for example, you have to like the Patriots and I have to like the Dolphins, or you know what I mean? So it's like in the teams, you know what I mean? Like here in Kentucky, you got University of Kentucky, we got University of Louisville. One's red, one's blue. Like the parties, one's red, one's blue. You know what I mean? It's like you have to people and see. This is I don't think this is so much a nature thing. I think this is a nurture thing. I think we're taught. I don't think instinctively we want to put ourselves into these boxes, and I don't think instinctively. I mean, we're the only species really that's so divided. I mean, you don't see this with like mountain cats or fish or whatever. Not like little camps. Yeah, they're all just like one.
And he likes the yellowfish. I like the green fishes. Fuck the yellowfish guys.
Yeah. That actually sounds like PJ Braun's imitation of Palumbo, but
really?
Yeah, he does that a lot. He's like doing his cardio. But the thing is, no, but we're like the only species, the only that does that sort of thing. And I really think that, like you had said earlier, you don't think that anybody is passionate about war, but
some people could be. I agree. Some people could be. Yeah, if they think that's a means to an end.
You're right, because some people say wars are terrible, but hey, they're great during depressions and inflation. I mean, they make
a lot of money for.
But that's crazy that you would think
that
blood money. But that's wars tend to start up economies.
I agree. Maybe I revised my comment to say that there's always something. There's somebody's in every camp, right? Like there's always somebody supporting everything. It's hard for me to believe that somebody would want to support war, but I totally get why somebody might if they. Like if I was being a part of an oppressed country, and I was a part of that oppression, like I was being oppressed, I would say, hey man, maybe we gotta viva la revolution, I could totally get this, but I find it to be I think it limits us so much. We're the ones that suffer as a country when we limit ourselves by defining ourselves into boxes, because not everybody fits in those boxes.
No, absolutely not. And what's crazy is what if you had just some way, multiple choice, or just all the ideas without knowing to what party they belong to. A lot of people will support something just based on what party is saying it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You could walk up to a Republican. I mean, I've heard Republicans, so-called Republicans, say, oh my God, working conditions are terrible. We don't have enough breaks. You know what I mean? Our pensions suck. I mean, like they could fire us at any time. Wouldn't it be great if we started a union? Well, bro, that's like straight out of the socialist camp. You know what I mean? You want to start a union, like you want to organize the workers, break the chains of oppression. You're a Republican. You're in the wrong camp, bro. But the thing is, they don't know that because they're just they believe that they're Republicans or they believe they're Democrats. I know some Democrats that are, basically like laissez-faire capitalists. You know what I mean? They're just like, shrink the government down to a P.O. box, let them maintain an army. Otherwise, no regulations, no taxes, no tariffs. I'm like, you're not a Democrat. You're like a hardcore Republican. So like some of it, and like you said, nobody fits into two boxes, you know what I mean? Or any box exactly.
Well, I think this contributes to some of the problem when we elect people too, because it forces a lot of these candidates to support ideas or support things that maybe they don't care about, maybe they do care about, maybe they shouldn't, or maybe they have a different idea. And it takes the focus away from the actual real content of what they stand for. And instead it becomes a character debate. Because we know this person's a Republican. We know that this is what Republicans pretty much stand for in the general political space. This is a Democrat. We know what they generally stand for. And so you're arguing not about ideas, which is what I would rather argue about. I'd rather argue like which is the best idea what's the best proposition to make this country run better or whatever under whatever topic we're talking about.
And the best times we've ever had, I think is really 96 to 2000, like that window there, because you had Clinton in the White House and the Republicans controlling the Congress, and you had Reagan too was very bipartisan as much as he could be. That's really where you want to be at. We have sort of both parties. Like right now, the parties are like they're not working together. But the idea is to have both parties work together. I personally would like to go a little bit to the left. I mean, but America. I mean, I got to be really honest with you. America is a center-right country. I mean, that's the like in other words, I believe America is more conservative than liberal.
Oh.
Like in other words, I believe it's more.
I think that's changing. I think that's.
I hope so. I hope so.
I think that meter is sort of moving in other directions. Like you see it in like, for instance, the legalization of cannabis. You've seen this, and this is one area where to me, it's the epitome of conservatism versus like being liberal, and also gay rights and stuff like that. All these kinds of things. And I'll just say equality, rights equality in general, because it's ludicrous to me to believe that anyone should deprive anybody of any rights, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, or orange, blue, aliens, non-alien, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you can find whatever reasons you want. They're just excuses to oppress somebody, a particular person, whether they're a citizen or not a citizen. You can make it about economics, but it's still for me, it's still about oppressing somebody. Okay, so just because they don't have certain rights as countrymen, a country person like you and I in the United States, doesn't mean we should treat them inhumanely. Doesn't mean we should deny them access to this great country. That's my personal opinion.
And again, and we're on the same page. So if we were, in other words, if we were at a disagreement and I was to bring up this example, I would feel like it'd be like a cheap way to get you to come to my side. But since we're on the same side, I'll bring it up just because I think it's important. Japanese internment.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what I mean? That is an example of not just folks that are not here legally because they were. It's not about folks that aren't citizens because they were. Even though they were citizens, they were still basically put into concentration camps. I mean, they weren't exterminated, like, they weren't tortured, but they were basically concentrated. They couldn't leave. They were in prisons. And they were there for the simple fact that they were Japanese, even though they were Americans.
My first wife, Shauna, her father was born in Lake Oswego, I believe, Oregon. So all the Japanese on the West Coast, if you were born on the West Coast, you were interned because they felt that was close to Japan and it was a security risk. So he was interned as a senior in high school. Okay, now check this out. He had a full ride scholarship to a university. He was a straight A student. He was a valedictorian in his class, and he was the school class vice president in Portland. And when he was interned, I think it was like a year or so. When he got out, he was denied his scholarship. Their family had farms. They were farmers in Oregon and Washington and Idaho. And all their equipment and all their land was stolen from them. All the money taken out of the bank from all the other people. So they really were left with nothing. So there was more there was more than just internment going on at that time. It was really sort of a reason for people to really do some really heinous things to people's lives. But here's the cool part about the Japanese American internment that I think is cool, that I learned from my ex-wife, and because he became a successful farmer later on. He worked for other farmers, and then their family saved money and then bought little pieces of land and then built up until finally they sent one child to school, to college at a time. He was the youngest, so by the time he got his turn, he was already full into his career. He already had farms. They were already successful, so he didn't go. But he was a wonderful, this guy, and I remember Oscar, he was a wonderful man. He was so smart. This dude, he memorized the entire periodic table with all of it in his head. Like he could just spit it out like this. He wanted to be a chemist. The world missed out on God knows how many wonderful people, careers and things because of some of the limited thinking that we had in this country. But it did gain a lot of things. I gained a wonderful wife, and I gained a great family from that. But there was still so much that I totally agree but there was a lot of egregious things done. But what I wanted to highlight was that all the families that I know of, and her family, because her mother's family was born in Idaho, so they weren't interned. It's kind of ironic, just a few miles away. Right. And all the families that were interned, she said, by the time 20 or so years went by, they all had successes. And it was the mentality of the Japanese culture at the time. They wanted to be American. They wanted to fit in, so they didn't complain. It was a very different mentality. It was not a look what somebody did to me mentality. It was what are we going to do about it now mentality. And that's very important.
Yeah. And that's a great glass half full type way of looking at it. Not to,
I'm not saying they liked
trivialize it. No. and I'm not trivializing it at all. I mean, that's a great thing. And as long as the oppressed were able to overcome the adversity and make a bad situation something good, that's great. But I would come down very hard on the oppressor, saying, well, look, what we did to you, try to take credit, because no one should ever be subjected to that, not for a year or for an hour or for a minute, because they did nothing wrong. So, but I understand what you're saying, and I think that's awesome. But I still think that just the fact that it could happen, that it has happened is pretty jaw-dropping.
That should be a warning to us today. Some of the things that were, and I know it's not the same thing, but the wall reminds me of this. It's like we're building a wall. Are we gonna build a wall around our whole fucking country now? It's like that what we're gonna do? Because that's not gonna keep anybody.
Well, that there are people in Trump's camp, and I don't know if Trump is one of these people, but there are definitely people in his camp that don't recognize the citizenship of children born in America, which is unheard of. Every country in the world recognizes, even if your parents were to come into a country and, I don't know where they're going to go with this, and by people, I don't mean like, the guy at the 7-Eleven. I mean, like people like in actual positions of power within their camp. I don't know if they're going to start stripping citizenships. I don't know if they're going to start.
See, again, all this stuff strikes as fascism, man. Like,
right.
It really does. Yeah. And it's whenever and history shows this, that, there's a focus on military, there's a focus on some of these different ideas. There's a demonization of one sector of the population, whether it be aliens or whether it be whatever it is. But there's this, they all exhibit very similar kinds of symptoms in history. And not that I'm saying this is going to happen, because I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists. I don't think this is a plan. I think it's a natural way that people respond to fear. And I've always said before, I've written about it a lot, that I am really against fear-based mentality, that we should never make choices and decisions based on fear, because it's not a great way to, when you move in life, we all have goals and dreams and aspirations for all these wonderful things that we want. As a country, as individuals, we have these things, and it's wonderful. This is how we progress and grow and become more than what we already are. And so in order to get to those places, the last thing you want to do is try to avoid all the pitfalls. You don't avoid the things that get in the way. You don't avoid the challenges. As a matter of fact, you confront those. You move toward the things you want. That's the most direct way to get what you want, is to move towards it. When I started out in bodybuilding world, I was 97 pounds, and I was 15 years old. And I remember the way that I confronted this was I needed to make sure I thought at the age of 15, I thought if I just got over 200 pounds, all my problems would go away. Like that would be so that was my marker. My litmus test was when I hit 200, I know I'm going to be this bodybuilder, this great bodybuilder. So I moved directly towards it. What I didn't do was try to avoid all the pitfalls along the way. Well, I better not do this. Well, what happens if I do this? I better not. No, man, I just plowed forward, and it's like going for a job, right? Like I remember going to the first time I remember wanting to go out of graduate school, I applied for some sales jobs in software because I wanted to do enterprise software sales because I knew that was a lot of money in it. I was like, okay, I can do this. All of my friends in technology said, no, they're never going to hire you. You need this kind of experience. You need to be this kind of Ivy League, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, man, it's like, but I went straight. And guess what? I landed one of the premier marquee companies and they hired me. It's like,
that's amazing.
And I became the top sales guy year one. Now, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but my point is that it's because of the philosophy. I remember people asking me over and over and over and over and over, hey, how did you do this? How did you do this? How did you do this? And I said, well, I always pursue what I want. I don't worry about what's coming at me. I pursue what I want. I move toward that.
Right.
I'm going to encounter bumps along the way, right? Like I'm going to encounter, like in sports, you encounter injuries. You encounter roadblocks. You encounter plateaus in your progress. You don't stop. You don't try to avoid those. You don't, because you will never anticipate all of them, right? Like, but you move. When you hit them, you figure out how to go around them, under them, over them, whatever. And that's the way I think the best way to proceed. We don't build walls to try to avoid people coming into the country. Instead, let's move towards what we really want. We really want a fiscally sound country. We want a country that embraces all of its members equally. All these kinds of. That's what we should be moving towards.
Right, and even how you said when you were going really fast, but you still kept your principles in the sense that you said going around or under, but you never said through. There's a mentality too to go through people, to be more like adversarial. When in fact sometimes if you just go around or under or over, like just I know I don't want to like dwell on that one point, but I think it's important because I think if you start butting heads and start being negative with people, then you're going to lose track of what it is you want. And what you're talking about, I think, is a very to put it in real layman's terms, almost like a tunnel vision kind of thing,
That's exactly what
but I think it's even bigger than that too, because like what I mean, like especially like with you with the pro card and so many people with pro, like one competitor comes to mind, and I don't know him, but I know of him, is Vinny Galanti, or even Bob Ciccarillo.
I know Vinny.
Bob Ciccarillo was like 10, 15 years waiting for that program, but he finally got it. But I'm sure people along the way said, oh, why don't you do emceeing or writing? You can make so much more money. But like that's what he wanted. He wasn't going to stop until he got it. So. Well,
I've said it before that the only way to lose in this life is to quit. It's the only way you lose. So like as long as you're running the race, as long as you're playing the game, you have a shot. And I really believe that success and winning, to use that vernacular, has less to do with the end result and more to do with the process, more to do with how you're playing the game. I hate to say it like that because it sounds so cliche.
No, it doesn't. It makes sense too. But the one thing too, with what happened with you also, I think is a good like life example, is that if your priorities or your goals change along the way, that's not akin to quitting. In other words, like when you spoke to Jim and you wanted to go in the judging direction as opposed to going to the pro card, that's not quitting. If your goals change, that's not quitting. But I think if you would have said, I can't get the pro card, I quit, I'm gonna go like take up fishing or something and never be seen again in the fitness industry, that would be quitting. Right. But your goals can change along the way. I think that's perfectly normal, actually.
I agree. I call it clarity. Like in life, as we walk the steps of our journey, of our path in life, we encounter the different obstacles, the different challenges that help us become more than what we were before. And as we do that, and it's the challenges that we face, the difficulties that give us clarity. People think they're bad. I don't think any of it's bad. I think all of it's good. I think that when every loss that I ever had, and I had a lot of them, I learned so much more than when I won. I mean, it was always it was never my wins that gave me something great. I mean, the win was great, but it was so little in comparison, right? Like, and I think that's important to note when it comes to politics, when it comes to moving in our life direction. It's that I think so. We get so destination oriented. We get so fixated on the goal, on the brass ring, and that's all wonderful. And it becomes the meaning of it all. Getting the pro card, winning the presidency, when in reality, that's the meaning of it all is the journey of it. It's like I always use this example I love going to Disneyland. It's one of my favorite places. It truly, for me, is one of the happiest places on earth. And it's because I love riding the rides, right? I love roller coaster rides. And I use this example, this metaphor, that life is very much like a roller coaster ride, like going to an amusement park like Disneyland, standing in line, you get on the ride. What you don't do is you don't get on the ride just to skip the ride to get to the end to get off. You go on the ride to ride the goddamn ride. It's the ride that's important. And that's what life's all about. It's up and down. It's turned around, and what makes it so special is one that there's an anticipation for this wonderful journey. It has ups and downs and curly cues, and it's terrifying sometimes, and it's exhilarating at other times. And then when it's over, we go, let's do it again.
Right.
And I think
yeah, no, for sure, 100%. But for me, though, the fun part is the actual climbing up, the hunger.
Yes.
And I think that once you're on top too long, I think that's also that could be your undoing. You know what I mean? Because you know,
for some people, I think it creates a little bit of complacency.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word.
It can create that sense of, well, you know, I think that was one of the. I don't know. I'm going to have Phil Heath on my show tomorrow, and I'm going to interview him. And I think one of the things that a lot of people have always criticized him for is that, you know, like, is that he's arrogant, all these things. And I've never really gotten.
Well, let me. I got.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I got to jump in on this. Now, Phil does not like me, and I have to explain why. Yeah, and if you happen to maybe off air tell him I send regards or whatnot,
sure.
But I'm equally to blame too. I'll give you a quick story. So. You know, I met Phil for the first time in 2007 at a show in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he had just beat Gustavo Bedell, who I thought the world of, at the Ironman. I
remember that show.
And he, it was.
I was there.
Gustavo Bedell, two-time, third place at the Olympia, and
that was the Ironman, right?
Yeah, and Phil had beat him.
Phil he looked awesome at that show. I knew at that show he was going to be Mr. Olympia. I'm like, this dude's on his way.
Oh yeah, and the fact that Jay basically picked him out of the choir and like this is the guy, it's kind of like what Ronnie did with Victor Martinez, and in 2007 Victor could have done it, but anyways, I love Phil. I think he's great, but I'm a big John Roden fan. I have been for a long time, and I was just very vocal about it, so he blocked me or whatever, and I saw him at Gym Show last year. And it was the most awkward thing because, like, it was me, Nathan Diasha, I think Ruli was there, Hector Mendoza, who we went together, and Flexitron. And Phil came up, I think with his girlfriend or his wife, I'm not sure, and they were all talking, but it was so awkward because even Hector told me it was so awkward. Like, Phil talked to everybody except for me, and I talked to everybody except for him. I'm just as much to blame. I should have said, how's it going, Phil? But it's weird though because I think so highly of him, but at the same time, when you're the champ, I feel like everybody's got the bullseye on you. Everybody's, and the thing is that if he comes back, I would love for him to come back, but if he comes back, I feel like I don't know what else he has to prove. I get he wants to tie Ronnie and Lee Haney, yeah. But he's done so much, and he's got such an amazing physique. But, I would hate to see him. I hate to bring up Samir because I think Samir Banu is an amazing bodybuilder. But, after the 83 Olympia, he came back for a few different Olympias, and he was placing out of the top 10. And I don't think a Mr. Olympia should place out of the top 10. I think a Mr. Olympia, it should do like Jay did or Ronnie. Jay came back, took 6th. Ronnie came back, took 4th. That was it, and they retired. Because when you're Mr. Olympia, now the counter to that is you do it because you love it, not for the places. You do it till you don't want to do it anymore. But I don't want to see I wouldn't want to see Phil come back and place anything less than 3rd or 4th and just keep going. I don't know.
Well, nobody likes to see, especially somebody like Phil, who has probably, in my opinion, is definitely one of the great Mr. Olympia champions of all time.
Oh, yeah.
So no matter what he does, that will be a marker for him. I still think.
And one other quick thing. I'm so sorry. I won't do that again. But the other thing too, and I do agree with Phil on this. He was the first Mr. Olympia to start and end his reign in the middle of the height of social media. Jay had it on the tail end, but when Phil had to deal with people like me, which I wasn't, and I hope he doesn't think that I was being malicious, because I wasn't. I was just a big Flextron fan. You know what I mean? There's Kai Greene fans, but him, he had to deal with Louis Marco. You know what I mean? And Louis Marco, when you've got, he doesn't even disclose how many subscribers he has. We know that he has a lot more than Nick Strength, who's got like almost 500,000. So Louis probably got over 1 million. And when you've got to deal not just with that personality, but all of that person's fans on a daily basis, people attacking you and saying that you shouldn't be Mr. Olympia, or that you don't look right, just constantly just trolling your ass, anybody would break. I don't think Phil gets enough credit for that. I think people are a little hard on him, and they don't realize how much pressure he was on, like 24. So you can't turn social media off.
Right.
That's the thing.
And I know Phil keeps track of all that stuff. He's very much a product of this current contemporary generation, and he definitely keeps track of all this stuff. So yeah, for sure, it is a tougher arena. If you're, what was it? Who was it that I was listening to? I was listening to a comedian. I think it was, I don't know if it was
man or woman.
It was a guy.
Okay.
I think it was Dave Chappelle. It could have been Dave Chappelle, or it could have been. Anyways, they were talking about social media and talking about how people get butthurt about comments we made. He's like, man, that's just a weak spirit, and I totally fucking agree. Like it's a weak-spirited person who takes a comment from somebody who, now if you know the person, and they make a comment on social media, then I can go, okay, man, I got my feelings hurt, man. You said that about me. I'm like, really, man? I thought we were friends. It's like, but if you don't know the person, and they're just some random motherfucker out there just making, oh, you suck, Phil. Like, I'm like going, I would be thinking like, man, Phil, bro, I know you don't give a shit, right? I know you don't care about who you don't even know this dude.
I'll tell you, it's funny though, because like I've been trolled quite a bit, and the best troll of all is Lee Priest. Lee Priest, and we talked about
that's like a badge of courage, man. That's a badge of honor. Right there.
I love it. I like what I do though, and I hope Dave's not watching this, because like I want him to feel like I'm very angry. I'm very happy, because I love it. Lee Priest wore a plastic bag over his head. Like, my last name's Duke, but they call me Dukey, and they think that really. But I've been hearing that since second grade.
Yeah, exactly.
I always give the troll, like I feed the troll. I'm like, that's not my last name, man. Like But I don't care, because like, look, any reaction is a good reaction. If you're talking about me, if you're thinking about me, that's great.
Yeah, man, I got it, you man.
It's not even reverse psychology. Like, I really want you to talk about me, even though it sounds like
somebody talk about me.
Yeah,
call me
exactly.
a dick, please.
Right, yeah, anything. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like they say my eyebrows are too wide or too far apart, and then one guy said that my jawline. I don't care. As long as I'm talking about it. The thing is, though, the thing is, going back to that though, of course, it would sting a lot more if you knew the person, like if you broke bread with the person or were friends with the person. But then when you are trolled by anonymous people,
right?
It's really kind of crazy, because you want to know who they are. You want to put a face to them and a name to them, and especially someone like Phil, I would imagine, because if that person then had the audacity to come and ask for an autograph or a selfie, I'd like to be able to say, you're that asshole that was trolling, but you can't, because these trolls have like an avatar of a horse. You know what I mean? It's like you have no idea who they are, So it stings less, but at the same time, it's a different kind of sting, because you don't know who they are. It could be the guy next to you that's like your fan club president.
I think part of what's built into that is like, maybe some of this is true. Like that little voice in your head that's like, well, who else thinks this, man? This guy's all just the bravest motherfucker to say it. Like, shit. But I think it's kind of piss poor people to just, you got to have nothing better to do in your life but to go out there and speak and to hate on somebody. I don't care if you feel you're right about it or not. It's like, really, man, like I can disagree with somebody and I could think they're just a jerk for having a particular, but for me to take my energy and to like, you suck, your jawline sucks, you look like like whatever. He was like, to me, that's like, man, like I don't know, I got nothing else better to do.
And I got to tell you too, there are people in the media, and I don't know who they are, and I don't want to attack anyone. Far be it from me to attack anyone, but there's people that I don't know what their agenda is, but they take less than flattering photos of the bodybuilders on stage. And for example, if you're doing a rear lat spread or a rear double bicep pose, nobody should be taking a picture of the front of your physique because the pose is a back pose.
Right.
So if somebody has some abdominal distension, which I would say 99% of them do, and it could be GH, it could be insulin, or it could be the fact that they're eating a shit ton of food, whatever it is.
Maybe they just took a damn breath.
Yeah, maybe they took a breath. Yeah,
they caught him right in the middle. Like,
I don't know how the hell someone's getting an angle of the front of them, but that shouldn't go out. That's not, that's not what the pose is, a back pose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they do that. Sometimes too, you have cameras that take, I don't know, like a gajillion shots per minute. I'm not a photographer, I'm a videographer, if anything. They will run the photo of the least flattering photo of all. Because they want to, I don't know if it's sensationalism or if it's just being malicious to the bodybuilder. But we didn't see that in the magazine era. And I know a lot of people hate the magazine era and they prefer the digital. And the digital is better because you get your info faster. Unfortunately, you don't get the same level of professionalism that you have. The magazines wouldn't have done that, like, because they were about growing the sport. Something like that hurts the sport. It doesn't hurt just the athlete, it hurts the sport.
I think there's value in both places, but I do agree that if you're gonna, I don't have a problem seeing some of the candid shots. But what I have a problem is saying like you can't judge the person win or lose a contest based on this fucking candid shot here. Like, that's not what the judges see. That's not what's being evaluated. Like, you're talking about these strange angles. Like, you're like, no, man, that's not where the judges have one particular point of view. I know I'm a judge. I sit there in a particular seat. I have one particular perspective. I have to judge based on this, and I'm not looking at all the angles. I can't. But I do think that it's easy to sit back and to judge the athletes, to judge some of these things at your computer, and when you don't have all the information. And I'm not saying there isn't some degree of truth or some degree of license to be able to have. I mean, this is America, it's freedom of speech. But I think people need to put those kinds of comments in the perspective that they're just an opinion and they mean very little. They mean very little.
Yeah, I'm not crying. I just have some in my eye. But
I know you're crying, man. Yeah. You're crying, man.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
I knew you were a sensitive guy.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think though that 100%, and I also think that a lot of people, like, I didn't realize this either. Again, why I'm such a huge supporter of the NPC and the IP Pro League. Again, it's not lip service. It's just reality. When you become a judge, you know this because you're a judge. You have to go through a series of tests. You have to test judge. Yeah, I mean, you have to know your shit inside out. You really have to know it. And so a lot of the people, and some of the commentators, they know this too. But I don't know, again, if it's, you want to hope that it's not about clickbait. But some of the media personalities, they kind of like to throw the judges under the bus a little bit and be like, how could they have done this? Like, knowing full well that the judges are basically following a protocol, in terms of aesthetics and balance, and in terms of ratios. I mean, most scorecards aren't really that. I mean, I've never seen a situation where someone that placed dead last, another judge had first place.
Right?
You don't
see that. Doesn't happen. No, not usually.
So yeah. So but again, I think they're trying to make news where there may not be any kind of thing. Some of the commentators.
Sometimes I also think sometimes the commentators I've seen, and I'm not honing on any particular person because this is not really directed at a particular person. It's really directed just in general. What I've noticed over the years, like at the Olympia or at the Arnold, especially the big shows, the commentators sometimes I feel like, do you know what the sport's about, or do they just hire you to like cover it? Because what are you talking about, bro? It's like,
and that's something that, again, no disrespect. Nick Strength is. He also has me blocked. But anyways, Nick Strength is a great guy. Yeah, he lives in Cincinnati. Awesome guy. But the thing is, that's sort of what he does. He'll comment on shows and this and that. And he is a bodybuilder. He's an awesome bodybuilder. Works real hard. He's I think he works with Aaron at Redcon. I think he's got like a sponsorship or something, which is great. That's huge. That's awesome. But the thing is, again, and I love commentators. I love the fact that you comment. But the thing is like the fans sometimes. They are not aware. Like, some fans, they'll take a commentator's words and they'll run with it. You know what I mean? And the commentator may not even want that. The commentator's just giving an opinion. You know what I mean? But the fans, that's the thing. Like, I feel like sometimes the fans, like, are not really all that educated. Like I've seen fans say, you know, like that guy's got a killer back or something, and it's not a back pose, or that guy, you know, has got killer shoulders and it's like a leg shot. You know, they don't know. You know, and that's the thing is it's tough. It's definitely tough.
It is, and that's why.
And it's a snowball effect. You know, it just gets bigger and bigger. So.
You're absolutely right, but it does give the sport quite a bit of liveliness, and to me, I always find this stuff interesting. I like hearing people's comments. I really do wish, though, it's my desire that the Olympia and the Arnold would get would have some good commentating, some good coverage, like video coverage. And they get great pictorial coverage. They get great but good video coverage, like. I see the Arnold sometimes, and I'm watching on the monitor in the backstage sometimes because I'm back there working and stuff, and I see like, what's this cameraman doing? Like, why are you in that? But I just don't find that like. And then every year people will email me or they'll message me during the Olympia, and they're like, bro, like who's doing the? I'm like, dude, I'm not in charge of this shit.
Well, I gotta say though,
I didn't watch it last year's, but.
I know that Dan Solomon did something with the Arnold a couple of years ago. He did a pretty good job, and actually really good job. But he did it live, you know. And I know that with the Olympia, they try to do it live also. I think what it is too, like those guys, they do a great job. But like some of the photographers and some of the videographers that are not in the industry, which is what I think you're talking about, maybe they don't know really what they're shooting.
They don't know what they're shooting.
Yeah, they don't know what they're shooting. And commentators, I you know. Thankfully, most of the commentators have been pretty much on. I will be honest with you. I was a little skeptical at first when I saw some of the WWE folks, like Triple H and The Rock getting involved, you know, with the sport. But they actually brought a lot of life to it. You know what I mean? You know, I wrote an article about this like about a month ago for Iron Magazine, and it's like bodybuilding is a very interesting sport because we have a lot of. And I say we again, you know, I consider myself part of the sport through media, but you know, I hope folks don't mind me saying we. But
of course, you're part of it.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. This sport is very interesting because while it is a quote unquote niche sport, and while it's a quote unquote subculture sport, the established stars, if you will, and I hate talking like this. It sounds like I'm giving a BBC doc. Well, established, you know, if you will.
It's okay.
You know,
spit it out.
But spit it out already. They love bodybuilding.
Yes.
Like you have multi-platinum recording artists. You have movie stars. Sylvester Stallone, he loves bodybuilding. You know what I mean? WWE stars, they love bodybuilding. And so I'm glad in a way that the sport's a little inclusive. Like CrossFit, if you're not part of that, they won't talk to you. Bodybuilding, I feel like, is bringing people in, which is cool. But when it comes time to reporting on a show, though, pictures, videos, commentating, the bar should be set very high. You know what I mean? And sometimes when we have folks from outside that aren't really versed in it, it doesn't come off right.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right. I agree 100%. It just
and that was the fear that I had. That was the fear that I had in 2014 or 2015 when NBC was going to run the Olympia. Because I was scared that they weren't.
They never did it. I never heard what happened with all that. Like just they canceled it.
Well, I think what happened was, I mean, I don't know, but I think what happened was the friction between Kai and Phil was a little bit more than I think. I don't know, but it got pretty bad. I mean, those guys were about to, maybe you could ask Phil, I don't know, but like, I think those guys were about to like, you know, go to blows on stage. Like it was
I remember
bad.
that. And I know that, well, there was a lot of that was a big rivalry, and
I know Hani tried to play it off like it was staged, but I don't think that was staged.
No, I mean, I was there sitting like 20 feet from these guys, and it didn't sound staged to me. It sounded like, and I think like Kai. This is just my opinion. I didn't talk to him about it, but I think Kai. He was being the performer that he is. For him, this was like he's playing the part of being the future Mr. Olympia, and he was just trying. And I don't think he meant it. I don't think what he did he really meant super maliciously. But Phil's a serious competitor, so is Kai. But I think Phil was just a little on edge with it. I think that's what I think. And he's like, you know, I think you're right. Like if all it would have taken was another little nudge. And next thing you know, it's like ding ding. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah, and I would not bring this up tomorrow, but I think something that probably pissed Phil off, and maybe he still does piss him off, but especially when he was at top, was that Kai was more popular than him.
He still is. And
You know what I mean?
but that is,
and how many Olympias? I'm thinking in Phil's mind, but I've just won 7 of these things in a row. How many freaking Olympias do I have to win in a row? What do I have to do to be? And what's crazy is the last couple of years, Kai wasn't even competing anymore. He was still more popular than Phil. I mean, that's got to weigh on.
Here's the funny thing, and I'm going to do this in Phil's defense, because this is what I would remind Phil of if it was me, if I'm sitting with him, and I probably will remind him of it sometime, that in years to come, this is my opinion, though. I don't own the knowledge on what's going to happen in the future, but in my opinion, what will happen, more people will remember the Phil Heath as one of the greatest bodybuilding champions than they will remember Kai Greene, because Kai Greene never won. He's a second placer. And I hate to say that, because Kai Greene's a wonderful bodybuilder. I love him and I think he totally deserves it. If he
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. He didn't win it. Not yet.
Chris Dickerson, Samir Banu, they won 1. It doesn't matter. You can win 1 or 8 as long as you got the Sandow. You're set. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, that's really the thing, and that's why I hope Kai comes back. But you know what?
I think he will.
Kai comes. Yeah, I think he will too. But you know what? It's
like, here's what I think. I think he's not afraid of Sean Roden. I think he never thought that he was ever going to be able to dethrone Phil. I think that's what he truly thought, and he thought that the powers that be would never allow that to happen, because they liked his physique over his, and but he's beaten Sean before. So it's all a head game, and I talk about this, that being a champion is all up here. It's what you decide you believe about yourself. And he decided just a couple years ago that this was as far as he was going to go with Phil, and he didn't want to do that again year after year. So, but now that Phil's shown that he can be beaten, so Kai's like, hey, wait a minute, I still have the juice inside me that says I want to be Mr. Olympia.
Right. I mean, for whatever it's worth. I mean, and I hope Aaron Serum is watching this, and Aaron says, Kai, do it. Because the company would be. I mean, the company's huge. I mean, Kai Greene could sell toilet paper, and it would sell like Kai Greene. And the thing is that I wish that everybody in that camp would, because really ultimately it's Kai's decision. I mean, Kai is no one's man. Kai does, I think, what Kai wants to do, and that's what makes him so successful. But the thing is I think pride. I mean, go back to Trump's wall. I mean, I think a little bit of it might be pride too. I mean, if he comes back, I mean, ideally. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you think is more important to Kai on like emotional, not spiritual, but like emotional level? Winning the Sandow or finally beating Phil? Because if he wins the Sandow, he will do it in Phil's absence.
I don't think beating Phil is in his camp, his realm of I care. I think it used to be. I think what he cared, it was beating Phil was a necessity to getting the Sandow. So that was what is it. And I think when his mind got released of that, I think that will be enough for him to be able to go and do it this next year, if he does it. If he doesn't, that's okay too. But my guess is he will. And not because of fame, not because of fame, not because of money, not because of it's going to help his career, because he doesn't need any help with his career, not because it's going to help him sell more supplements, although it probably would. But I think it's because I watch a lot of his stuff. I like Kai Greene. He and I agree on many of our philosophies in terms of how to manifest what you want in life. Thoughts do become things. It's how this universe works. And he understands one thing, that it's about how you feel. So it's not about getting the Sandow for him, although that's a wonderful thing. I think it's more about, is it what I want? Is my desire to do that? If it's my desire to do it, I'm not leaving that on the table. And if I feel that desire can be accomplished, then I'm going to do it. And will it thrill me? Will it delight me? Will it give me more in my tank? And I think it will. Sure. That's why he goes and does the acting thing. He does all these. Right. This is what I really admire him for this. This is one of the great examples in our sport of somebody who's truly achieving greatness. And he doesn't have to win a trophy to do it.
And I think, no, absolutely. And I think, though, I really want to applaud again. I don't mean to sound like, like the poster boy for cheerleading or whatever, but I really, really want to applaud Weider AMI, because I think hiring Dan Solomon, I mean, Dan is playing a very, very important role. And if anybody can actually really facilitate that, because it's got to be hard, 2019 will be basically, I think, 5 years. So it'll be the 5-year anniversary that Kai has not been on Olympia stage.
Right.
I mean, so
it's kind of
that's
surreal.
a decade, yeah. And they had a meeting. Dan told me about it right after it happened, and then I put it up, and I actually emailed Dave Palumbo, and I believe I emailed him. He also said, please cover this story, please, because somebody might think, they just happened to be in New York at the same time or something. But it was a meeting, and things were discussed. And I mean, obviously Kai didn't agree to come back or not. I don't know, but it was an important meeting, obviously. And Dan I have a lot of faith in Dan. I think Dan can really do it because I think one thing is, Kai wanted to do it for all the right reasons, which you've put out there perfectly. But I also think there's going to have to be someone from the other camp that says, and I think, Dan's that guy without giving away the farm. I mean, I think it's a negotiation and all that, but I think Dan's the guy. Dan is so respected by the athletes, because of Pro Bodybuilding Weekly and Digital Muscle. I mean, Digital Muscle, what is Digital Muscle? I mean, Digital Muscle is like in just a few years, Dan essentially created a hub, like basically created something bigger than RxMuscle at the same level as Flex Magazine and MD out of nothing. I mean, he had Peter McGuff. I mean, he had Ruth Silverman and John Hansen and just all these people. He just brought them all together and just created this thing out of nothing. So I mean, he's definitely somebody that could do it. I think he could do it.
I think that it'll be interesting. No matter what, it'll be interesting if Kai comes and does it. But it'll be the most interesting if Phil does, because he may or may not.
But I think and I wouldn't insult you by challenging you to a bet, but I think Sean can hold the title successfully against either one of them.
I think he can. I have no doubt, actually.
For about one or 2 years. The thing about it, though, and I've told Sean this, though, I mean, I think he could defend it successfully 1 year, maybe two, but definitely one. I don't think he'll be a one-time Mr. Olympia, but what Phil accomplished, I don't think we'll ever see again. What Phil, Ronnie, Jay, Dorian, but actually more so, Phil, Ronnie, Lee Haney, because Jay lost the Olympia in the middle and then came back, and he won 4, which is But these guys, Phil got 7, Dorian got 6, Ronnie and Lee got 8. We're never going to see that again. I mean, it's not going to happen.
It becomes increasingly more difficult, especially as we see the crop of guys coming up and how wonderful the physiques are. It is hard to believe, but you never know, right? You never know. Like, anything can happen in this life in the future, but whether it does or whether it doesn't it doesn't really matter. But I agree with you that there is a wonderful accomplishment that has happened with Phil and his career, with Dorian, with Lee Haney, with all these great athletes who were able to have successes. But the landscape is always different, right?
Right, and I think and honestly, the only other thing I want to say too is that 91 Olympia, I think, was I wasn't there, but I've seen the videos and read extensively about it. I think that 91 Olympia was probably one of the greatest Olympias ever, because you had, Dorian on the way up. You had, Lee Haney retired because he wanted to retire, but he didn't retire. He wasn't injured. He wasn't old. None of that. He just retired because he wanted to. But if you look at, 2006 with Ronnie, or if you look at, 2018 with Phil, I don't think Jay beat Ronnie. I think Ronnie lost because of injuries. I don't think that Flexitron destroyed Phil. I think Phil had injuries. So what I'm trying to say is these guys I don't feel like to me, honestly, I don't feel like they lost. I don't feel like Phil really lost or Ronnie lost. I think they dealt with injuries. And injuries got the best of them. If Phil is going to come back 100%, if he's going to the abdominal issues are 100%, he had a hernia, for Christ's sake. I didn't even know this. Have you seen Ronnie Coleman, The King, the Netflix movie?
Yeah, I saw it. Great. It's awesome.
He had all of these issues. I had no idea. His whole reign, he was in agonizing pain. Everybody thought that all this happened after the reign, but no, the whole time, before he won the Olympia, he was in agonizing pain. So the thing is, if Phil comes back 100%, he could win another 5 or something. You know what I mean?
I think it's really interesting. I'll tell you who I really have a lot of promise for, and this is, I know, outside the realm of what I thought I was going to talk about, but it seems how we're talking about it. Brandon Curry, I really think he has the potential to be the next Mr. Olympia. I really think this.
I do too, and yeah, I'm sorry, and I've been saying that. I've told him that, and I actually think, just my just my theory, but I think that the Camel Crew thinks the same way too. I don't know why Big Ramy left the Camel Crew, but you know, I
think he was dissatisfied with his performance at the Olympia, and he rightfully so. He didn't look as good as he should have, and I have my own opinions about. I know some of those guys over there. I've been over there to Kuwait. I judged the Kuwait Classic.
I've heard. Yeah,
and it's a great, amazing gym. But the trainers that they have, they're. My honest opinion is that they're still more novice than they need to be when it comes to this level of competition. They haven't really been, so they're making mistakes. You could see it on the stage. Like, all the guys came in watery. They all came in overfull. All of them.
But whatever they're doing with Brandon, though, Brandon's career just totally changed. I mean, you know,
I've been asked this, what's the secret over there? When I went over there, it was my intent to try to figure out what the heck is going on over there. It was about a year and a half ago. I went over there, and here's my assessment. The secret is, it's not any new drugs. It's not any new training techniques. It's that when you're over there, man, you can't go out and date. It's a Muslim country, bro.
Right. They don't even allow women in the gym.
There's no women in the gyms. It's all focus. These guys have schedules. Boehner puts them on a schedule. They get up at a certain time. They eat at certain times. There's guys that help them do all this stuff. So your life is all about bodybuilding, man, and that's called focus. And when you have that kind of focus, you're going to make incredible gains, incredible progress. And when you're here in the States or in other places, you got wives and girlfriends and jobs and this and that and the other thing to contend with, and it distracts your focus. And so most people underestimate the power of focus. That is how we create. And so when every athlete, high level successful athlete, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you name it, Kobe Bryant, you ask them about focus. How important is focus? Not only just in a game, but in when you're training, it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important. It means the difference, especially when you're at the Olympics. A tenth of a second could mean the difference between a gold medal and not medaling, right? So hey man, it's all about focus, man. And so at this level, the same too. It could mean.
And it's crazy that they have that there, because like I've heard, you don't have to worry about your food. You don't have to worry about even getting to the gym. They got you covered. And so many people.
They even got a doctor that lives there inside the apartment
amazing.
Complex that he owns. And
I've heard the equipment at Oxygen Gym is like second to none.
Oh, it's awesome.
I mean, it's amazing.
The only bad thing is there's no chicks there. There's no great scenery. We got a bunch of dudes.
Right. But and it's crazy because and look, listen, Gold's Venice is a great gym, but it's not.
It's
I know of people that go there thinking they're going to see pumping iron 2019, and you're not. I mean, there's not even most of the pros. The big pros have left California for Vegas or South Florida. I mean, they're not even living in the area. So it's cool that there's something like that. Now on the East Coast, you have Bev Francis, which I really do think is the Mecca of bodybuilding. None of that East Coast. I think it is the Mecca. I mean, Gold's Gym is not. I'm just being honest. Steve's gym is, for all intents and purposes, the Mecca. But I mean, Oxygen Gym though. That, for that part of the world, I mean, I've heard is pretty intense. Interesting, though, insight about the coaching. I mean, I could see, I don't know how long they've been coaching, but again, Brandon Curry, huge. And Ruli is a freaking,
he's
Ruli,
nuts, that dude's monstrous. He's nuts. And I've gained a lot of respect and I've become a fan of his. I was never really a fan of his physique for several years. And then recently, just because he was blocky, but what impresses me the most is that he's taken the criticisms, and each year I can visually see the improvement. He's making the improvement. His waistline's getting better. His posing's getting better. All the criticisms that I criticized and that other people did, he made improvements. Now, he maybe not have perfected it yet, but he's making improvements, and man, that's the essence of bodybuilding to me.
Where do you see, what's your take on William Bonac? I mean, where do you see him?
William Bonac has tapped out on his potential, in my opinion. I think that he's still going to be top 4 or 5 in the Olympia. But you got all these great guys. When everybody's at their best, his disadvantage is that his stature. He's short. And if he puts any more muscle on his frame, he's going to look too blocky and look too, he's not going to look right. So it's hard. But he's got a quality about his physique that is just second to none. It's just granite hard, his bulbous round muscles. He's got that great skin tone. So he's got all these wonderful characteristics. So it's really, it's hard to say. It's hard to say where, but I think he's still a top 3-4 competitor, easy in Olympia, easy. But he's got to stay in the open class.
And one more person, I'm just curious, Dexter Jackson.
Dexter Jackson, this guy just continues to amaze me. And I know people say it all the time, but I think if he competes again this year, it'll be his last year. My guess is, I've heard it from him personally, probably that it'll probably be his last year if he does compete. I think he's done a wonderful job of preserving his body over time, but it'll be up to him, man. I think he can compete for a few more years. Honestly, I really do. I don't think he's done a great job of, like I said, of training in a way that could maintain the longevity. But being he and I are around the same age. I'm 48, and man, I couldn't do it. I mean, I'd break some stuff if I was trained the way I was trained before.
But I always thought it was so cool because, whenever people would ask Phil, who was he the most, not scared, but who was the person that really pushed him? It was Dexter. He never would say. I mean, not that the ones I saw, I wouldn't say Flexitron or even Big Ramy or who. By the way, I think he thought Big Ramy too is almost in that Kai Greene category of hype, and constantly hearing his name. But he would always say Dexter Jackson. I mean. And Dexter, I mean, they don't call him the Blade for nothing. I mean, that's
always in shape. I remember Dexter's kind of interesting because he's been around for a long time now competing, and he has established his mark in the sport as one of the great bodybuilders of all time. Truly one of the great bodybuilders as a physique, just fantastic.
Right.
It's I don't know. We'll see what his legacy, what it ends up being. I think he's secured his position in the bodybuilding annuals of Hall of Fame, so to speak. He's secured that position there.
Definitely.
Probably, but in my opinion, this is just an opinion. I still think that Ronnie Coleman is probably the greatest bodybuilder that we've seen so far. Next to Phil Heath. Phil Heath and Ronnie Coleman are two of my personal favorites, I think, for two different reasons. Ronnie Coleman has, of course, the best record in terms of Olympia wins, but the level of muscularity and the conditioning and the size, and then after seeing the movie The King, it gave me even a little bit more deeper insight into Ronnie Coleman's character, and I admire him even more now. Which I admired him a lot before, is that this dude, I love it because they highlighted it. They said, why do you, because I remember looking up to Ronnie Coleman in the 90s, and I was like, he's still a police officer? Why is he still a police officer when he's Mr. Olympia? I'm like, why? He's getting paid enough.
Oh my God.
And then he's like, because I love it. And it's the same, the same reason he gives for going to the gym at 4:30 every morning. Still, even when he's walking around with back pain that would cripple most people. And he's in there working out. And I'm like, bro, you are the king. I'm like,
that's crazy.
You're the man. I'm like, you're the man. This is it, dude. This is the essence of doing what you love for the sake of doing it. Most people say that shit and they don't know what it means, because when you do it because you love it, you do it through the pain. And I'm not talking about the pain of working out. I'm talking about this dude is walking around. He said, what level of, because, I know this because my girlfriend's a doctor, and they always ask, they rate pain 1 to 10, 10 being the most unbearable and 1 being the least bearable. And they said, and he's walking around, he said 9. Like 9 on a daily basis. Like, dude, you're walking around with a 9 and you're kind of smiling on your face? I'd be wanting to rip people's heads off.
So I got to ask you one last thing. And I know some people might think this feels like an interview, but this is what we both love. So, I mean, I feel like, and I'm going to shut up after this. I don't know where you're going to go anywhere else. But if I don't shut up, this is all we'll talk about. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts in terms of, because I believe that there's bodybuilders that maybe off of the stage, but still within the expo circuit, social media circuit, grew the sport. So what feelings do you have about Kali Muscles, and more specifically Rich Piana?
Kali Muscle, I don't Kali Muscle. I hate to say this because I don't know the dude. I know who he is, and I think he's doing so. I think some of the stuff he's doing is probably pretty positive. I know he has a rough background, so I don't know much about him. I just don't. I don't understand. I think he has a group. I think he has a sector that he resonates with, and that's great. I think that's wonderful that we need all the colorful figures. But I do think Rich Piana has a special place. I knew Rich Piana in passing. We took several pictures together, and I talked to him a little bit, and he was always a gracious man to me.
Oh yeah,
always wonderfully gracious. He was always really nice. He was forthright in his opinions, and I think he got criticized in his career because that. I thought it was sad that some people said some nasty things about him after he died, and I thought it was that. But I also think that he contributed deeply to the sport in so many ways that most people will never understand because they benefit from it. They benefit from him being able to be one of the forefront people of really pushing, of being able to make a career, and you don't have to win anything. You don't have to go. What's wrong with that? Nothing, man.
Absolutely.
Nothing's wrong with that.
And I was including. I gotta be honest with you. I fell into the political correctness category. So I was including Kali just to be, nice. But Rich really, and that's the thing, like he really did a lot for the sport. And I mean, I don't know if you ever saw how many people he had behind the booth. But most of those people were NPC and IFBB Pro League pros and top tier competitors who, I mean, God love them. They were great people, but they weren't. It wasn't like the supplement companies were like barging down the door for them. The supplement companies don't pay anymore.
I'll tell you one thing. I didn't agree with all of his perspectives on drugs, because I didn't agree with it. But that's what I like about our day and age. That's what I love about social media. That's what I love about what's going on these days is that we all can have an opinion. I just am smart enough to know that not all opinions are equal.
Yeah, no, exactly. But again, and that kind of goes back to again, I feel like, with Rich, he was very real and very unfiltered, and that's good. But then, with some people, it's all about drugs,
right.
Or they glorify drugs, and that I don't know that really helps so much. But
I think
clickbait is a big deal. I think it's a carrot that a lot of people
I think you could get there's a lot of people that want to be insta famous. They want to have a lot of popularity. They want to get a lot of likes. They want to get a lot of visibility, and that's great. There's two ways to get it, in my opinion. There's that way. There's through sensationalism, and Hollywood's been doing it for years, creating buzz around by coming out with outlandish headlines or stories that don't really match up to the truth. And that's kind of how I see clickbait. That's kind of how I see some of these things. When you just want to talk about drugs, you want to say something sensational, you want to say it gets people's attention. Right. Okay, now where's the substance? Because pretty soon they're going to know you're full of shit. You're going to know that there's no substance here. You're just talking. You're just speaking out the side of your neck.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody that's involved in bodybuilding knows that drugs, for some folks, are part of it. But when people think if I pin, then I'm going to be a star, that's not true. You know what I mean? I've seen people that look horrendous and they're taking everything but the kitchen sink. I mean, I don't think that the supplements, whatever supplements they may be, make the champion. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not. It's not the case. You and I both know that, and we see so many examples of it. But it is alluring for people to talk about it because all you're getting is the people who don't know what they're doing. The younger generation who enter into the sport, they get enamored with this. I know because I was enamored with the drug scene early in the early 90s, before the internet and before. But we relied on each other to get information, or doctors. God, we were able to go to doctors then. Now you can't do that.
And it's alluring too, because I think what the internet, social media specifically, I think what it feeds off the most is sort of shining a light on whatever in the hell could possibly still be taboo.
Right.
Steroids are one of the things that nobody would ever talk about.
Right.
Nobody, some of the bodybuilders would be asked these questions at expos, which, by the way, I think is incredibly disrespectful. I mean, so much so that people even ask now at these expos, they walk up to bodybuilders, and I mean, to me, asking someone what you take is akin to what's your social security number, or how much money did you declare on your taxes?
I'd say I used to do
private questions. These people think that they're
years ago, whenever I would go to the Olympia or I would go to these different shows and people would ask me questions like that, I would say, and I stopped doing this, by the way, because I'm a nicer guy, but I would say they say, hey man, like, well, how much do you use steroids? And I'm like, because I'm like 250, 60 pounds. I'm 5'7". I'm a big dude, right? And so naturally they're going to ask this question because they want to know, hey, you use steroids? I would say, well, what's your favorite sexual position with your wife?
That's about the same thing, yeah.
And they're like, I'm like, well, man, that's as personal as it gets, right? Like, you're asking me a personal question. I think we should both have some personal information on each other. Tell me how you like to fuck your wife. It's like, and I didn't ever want to get an answer. My only point was to make a point that, look, man, like, there's some things like, it's probably not a great thing to ask me. It's like, if you ask me, is it okay if I ask you a question about steroids? Sure. Then you're probably going to get, then it's easy. It's like, okay, yeah, man, sure. What do you need to know? What do you want to know? You know? Yeah, but you just come out there and like, I don't know you from Adam, man.
These expos too, and this is something that maybe like other sports have also, but like some of the fans, like, and I don't even know if they're fans, but some of the expo goers, they take certain liberties that, like, for example, asking those types of questions. Also the touching, like I've seen them like walk up and pat people on the back. You don't know them from a hole in the wall, but they're very touchy-feely. They take certain liberties. And the thing is, and I think that social media is great in the sense that it's really eliminated for a lot of people the mental divisions of like borders and like it's really narrowed the gap between the audience and the star. That's cool. Sure. Those are good things. But there's also like a little bit of a bad side to it where some people take certain liberties and they because they watch you, they think they know you, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's a little dangerous. So like really, you almost have to draw like a line, and that's where even going to Phil Heath also, the trolls. You know what I mean? Like they feel like they have a right. They feel like entitled to have the athletes always answer their questions and shit. And it's like that's not the case.
I've gotten that sometimes people get upset if you don't want to answer a question. I'm really good with answering people's questions, especially on social media. I'm happy to answer questions. But I do know that you're right. It's kind of funny, and I think what happens psychologically is, and I'm a student of behavioral sciences. I study this stuff all the time, even like brain plasticity and behavior and why we do what we do, because it's important to me. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I have no idea what any brain. What is it?
Brain plasticity. It's the ability for the brain to change itself and it's based on how we use it. So your brain actually changes. It's how it functions based on how you use it. So if you are always, I'll give you an example. Okay. People used to ask me, how come you're always so positive, Ted? You're always like, they'll say something, and then I'll come up with the positive spin on it, and they're like, "Wow, man, I never thought of how you always do this." I'm like, "Well, it's a habit over time. That if your brain is constantly wiring itself to come up with answers that are positive in nature, then it will be. Then your brain actually it'll actually increase its ability to be able to. It'll widen neural synapses. It'll make new neural pathways to be able to more efficiently get you to those spaces, right? To those places that you want to cognitively. So if you're negative, it does the same thing. If you met people who are just always have the dark side, like, oh, you better watch out for this, or they're very pessimistic. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, bro, we're talking about Christmas. It's like, oh, fucking people steal your presents. It's like, god damn, dude, like, fuck.
It's a Hallmark holiday.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's because they're so used to it. Their brain it becomes very difficult for them to think any other ways. So you have to be so those people have to be conscious of it, and then you have to move your thoughts. Well, your brain is like, this is what brain plasticity is all about. They're doing lots of really interesting research about it, because what we're finding is that your brain never stays the same. It's always changing your entire life, and it changes based on the way you use it. And here's the cool thing. Guess what happens when you don't use it? It actually can atrophy. It can actually lose its ability to have certain functions. So as we get older, you don't want your brain idle. It's good to read and to learn and to challenge yourself. And here's and I'm all into meditation and all these things and mindfulness. For sure. And they've shown studies, and there's wonderful studies done on meditation, and they find that the corpus callosum, which is the material that connects the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain, and that piece of tissue thickens as you meditate. When you meditate over and over and over, they've done brain scans of monks who've and their corpus callosums are really fucking thick. And what happens, what this does, it allows us to be able to traverse these hemispheres of your brain. So now you could solve problems in different ways. So IQs go up. When you meditate, your IQ literally goes up. You're able to solve problems in different ways. So, and I've noticed it because I've been meditating now for about 6 years, and consistently every day. I don't skip it. It's part of my daily ritual for my own mental health, my own physical health, and boy, I see the world differently. I solve problems differently. I think about my life and about things differently, and I know it has a lot to do with meditation. And then sure. I even look at my own life and I see the way I used to think, and it's right. It's like, wow, it's changed.
But when you meditate though, is it about self-reflection or is it about almost
it's about
like nothingness?
It's about emptying. It's about like my brain is so active all day long. I'm a cerebral person like you are. I love writing. I like expressing myself on paper and orator and audibly. But our brain is very much like a car. You keep your car on all day long, the engine's going to give out pretty soon, right? I believe that we kind of have to, we have to reset. We have to be able to find ways to reset ourselves so that we can select the way in which that we want to create in our life, how we want to feel. So you know this, like you've heard there's people out there with obsessive compulsive behaviors. They can't help it. They just start obsessing. We all get this way, right? We get on a topic in our head. We get on a topic in our head, and it's like, next thing you know, it's all we're thinking about. We have a tragedy in our life. Our girlfriend breaks up with us, or something happens. Fucking can't stop thinking about why did this guy say that? Like, why did this motherfucker do this to me?
Well, for me, I'll tell you, and I probably should have told you this at the beginning of the show, but we're just talking about bodybuilding. Which to me, like, it's very, very dangerous because I once I talk bodybuilding, I don't want to talk about anything else. But I think my obsessive compulsive, one of the things it's very difficult for me to accept criticism.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like, usually I'm good about it, but like I'm very sensitive. Like I did one of
that's okay.
I did a battery once of they give to corporate America, like a bunch of questions.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you right-brained? Are you left-brained? How do you think? Right.
Yeah, and the best one that I did, the best reading that I got, and I think it just nailed it, is they said I was hypersensitive and a huge extrovert. That's a really bad mix.
That's a bad combination, man.
Right. So I've been really, because I'm very outspoken and I love to share my opinion, and it's very difficult for me to stay quiet. I don't like to stay quiet, and I love to be talked about. So this is actually a good thing. But the thing is, I'm very hypersensitive with certain things, and
I think that's kind of how we first met. I think I made a comment, and you took offense to it. Remember, it was years ago. It was years ago. And then we started talking. I was like, "Hey, man, that's not what I meant." And you're like, "Oh, okay, my bad." And we became friends.
So, right, and so then but now, like, I've actually like reflect, and I try to, like, but it's hard to do though, and on a personal level, it's easier. But when and again, this is why I really want to mend fences with Phil, because I really understand where Phil. I on a smaller scale understand where he's at, because it's very difficult on social media.
It is.
Social media, you're because it's very easy to feel as if you're being cornered, like
Absolutely.
almost like your back's to the wall kind of thing, and
you're
in
a defensive mode. And you are going to express what's active inside you. So if defense is active, you're going to be defensive. You don't. Right. You're not. So everything comes across so differently.
Right. And so there's like a yin and a yang, and there's like a positive and a negative, and truthfully, and you can be either the alpha or you can be passive. Me, I feel like, especially if I feel vulnerable or threatened or attacked, I will actually, instead of bow down, I will dig in. I will make an even bolder stand. You know what I mean? Because to me, like, and in a weird way, I don't know if it's that I feel like I'm a martyr or something, or I feel like, you know what I mean? Like everybody feels sorry for me kind of thing. But I almost like the feeling of being me against everyone kind of thing. Like I like really standing strong for something I believe in.
I can see that. I understand. I like that.
Sort of
I like
romance to that kind of thing.
Yeah. When I was younger, especially when I was younger, I felt very much that way. I loved being the bodybuilder that nobody else understood me. Nobody else understood that shit. You guys don't know. You guys don't know how awesome this is. Like, I know how awesome this is. So
and then the best thing, the best thing is when you're right and everybody else is wrong. And then where you really, this is where it gets like a little dark and twisted. You don't say I told you so. You let them hear you say "I told you so" without you ever saying it. That's really twisted. But that man, that's better than
I'm getting in your head, man. I'm getting in your head.
That's good, man. That's good, man. I ruined your day, but I never said anything. But yeah,
well, you know, when it comes to like this obsessive behavior,
that's totally obsessive. Yeah.
So that's what, and meditation is totally. I would recommend it to you as a modality to help you to become more of what you really want your life to be in terms of like how, if you want to balance that side of you, because they've shown studies that this actually does help people with depression, anxiety, OCD. Because here's what happens. From a blame, and again, this is all ties back into brain plasticity, how we're changing our brains by our usage of it. When you meditate, the whole idea is to quiet the mind. I call it emptying. But really, it's just about focusing on something that's mundane. Like I focus on breathing, breathe in, breathe out, slowly, controlled, deep breathing. I close my eyes. I usually listen to binaural music, something that's theta waves. Something that doesn't strike up any emotional response. And that's the idea. The idea is that we empty ourselves, not because of emptying is great, but because now you're not thinking about too much. Nothing's going on that's causing some emotional response. And that's what's important, because when you quell that, your vibration raises. If you're frustrated, if you're upset, your vibration is low. It's a frequency that we tune ourselves to. You can read this when they do brain scans and stuff like that. You can read this. We give off frequencies. Everything gives off a frequency on this planet. And when you register these frequencies, these low frequencies are these frequencies that are things like frustration, anger, depression. All these what we would call negative emotions are generally low on the frequency scale. The high frequency scales are things like excitement, fun, love, joy, all the ones we prize, right? Those are the ones that we're looking forward to. Those are these high frequencies. Our brain gives off this really high frequency. By the way, when you go to sleep, your brain gives off delta waves. This is a very almost neutral frequency. It's neutral. It's not high, not low. It's right there in the middle. It's nothing. There's hardly any waves to it. And so what happens when you meditate is you go to these very low, these sort of moderate oscillating frequencies. There's not a lot going on. And so what happens is when you do that long enough, it's the ability for us to reset ourselves emotionally in a way that now when I come out of meditation, now I can select how I want to feel. I can say, today is going to be a great day. I don't have to know why. I'm just going to, I know the feeling of good. I know the feeling of excitement. I know the feeling of joy. I'm going to move towards that. Because if you wake up and you do the first thing that everybody does, they grab their cell phone and they look at their text messages, they look at their alerts, and they're bombarded with stress, bombarded with, I got to do something, bombarded with, so now your brain goes right from delta to delta to alpha to all of a sudden now you're being bombarded with these stress stimuli. Now you have almost no chance of really getting a hold of your day unless something really wonderful happens to you, like fucking like, you know, Miss America shows up at your doorstep and says, "Hey, I want to suck your dick." You know, or something like something ludicrous like that, like you win the lottery or something. No, but my point is that it's a way for us to on a consistent basis, because obsessive compulsive people and people in general, all of us, I would consider everybody obsessive compulsive to a certain degree, that we all, when we get something on our mind, like worry, like, oh, I'm worried about paying this bill, then you go to sleep. What happens when you wake up? You start back where you left off. You start worrying about the same shit.
And what I was going to say too, though, is like, I've heard people say that when they come out of the meditation, out of the time that they have, it's like their mind has woken up. Yes. Because like when I go to sleep, like my girlfriend says sometimes, like I start rambling about stuff like contest placings or like
second place bullshit.
Yeah, so it's weird because like it's just like you get really animated, you know what I mean? And the thing is, like I'm sleeping, you know.
That's okay.
But yeah, so I feel like it's crazy, but I feel like almost like sleeping rests the body, but like meditation really rests the mind, kind of thing, you know?
It does.
I've always thought that when I sleep, my mind stops, but
it does for the most part. It does, but we go in these cycles. There's these levels of sleep, right? And those deep levels of REM sleep we need to hit, and that's when we dream. And when you dream, well, you know, your brain becomes active again. And so so you're right, but dreaming's funny. I watched a really interesting researcher talk about dreaming. He's a world preeminent researcher on dreaming. I forgot his name. He was on Joe Rogan Experience a couple of weeks ago, and I loved it. It was awesome. And he was talking about like you need this REM sleep, because if you're not dreaming, it's like bad news. Our brains actually need it. And here's the funny thing about dreaming. This is what I thought was interesting. When you dream, Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real life and what's dreaming. It doesn't know. It literally doesn't know the difference. So if you dreamed that you were going to be, that you were like a superstar and everyone loved you and it was awesome and you were like on top of the world, you would feel that. And your body and your physiologically, you would have the same kinds of adaptations, the same kinds of physiological responses. You would wake up going, "Wow, man, I feel fucking great. What the fuck?" It's like, and they've done experiments, visualization experiments with athletes on, like there's one famous one with basketball players. They said they took 3 groups of people. There was a control group that did nothing. They said they tested their free throw percentages at the beginning and then after 8 weeks. And they didn't say, don't go to the gym, don't practice, don't do anything. We're just going to test you. You're the control group. The second group said, go to the gym every day for 8 weeks, 500 free throws every day, practice. And we're going to test you at the beginning, test you at the end. And then they said, another group, they said, okay, don't go to the gym, but in your mind, practice every day, 500 times, but make it perfectly every single time. And what they found was the control group, they didn't make any progress, of course, like you would expect. They had their free throw percentages were about the same. The ones who practiced in the gym, hey, they went up like about 11%, or 9.7%, 10%, something like that. But the ones who practiced in their mind and made it perfectly every time, they rose by 17.5%.
That's awesome, happy ending. That's what I wanted. Yeah,
more than the people. And the reason why was this: they concluded 2 things. The first thing was the brain doesn't know the difference between what. So people who obsess about negative shit, your brain and your body doesn't know the difference. Stop thinking about the bad stuff. It doesn't behoove you. It actually calls those things into your life in more powerful ways. But the second thing they concluded was that visualization is a powerful tool for anybody to use in your life. If you want to perfect, like there's this thing about, there's a book that's called, and I've mentioned it many times, but it's by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called Outliers. Wonderful book. He did all this research on success, what it means, how do we attain it, is there different, and he really looked at these outlier people in society who, like the Mozarts, the Steve Jobs, the Michael Jordans of the world, what is going on here? How come these people are able to do these incredible things? And what he came up with, and I'm just summarizing the book in general, was that he talks a lot about opportunity. But there's one concept in that book that I really loved. It was this idea of 10,000 hours. That it takes, and he did the math. He's like, it takes, and this is well-documented studies. They've done this study before, other psychologists, that it takes about 10,000 hours of practice and study and repetition to become what is considered a true master, like an Einstein or a Mozart. And I'll use Mozart as an example because most people think of Mozart like, oh, this guy was this amazing composer and musician and he was going to be this way no matter what. No, not really. He wasn't really going to be it, but he had a couple of benefits. His dad was a composer, was a court composer, not just idiot composer, but he was a court composer for, I think,
that's huge, yeah.
Vienna. Like, right. So this dude, so not only did he have his father being a teacher, so he started teaching him at the age of 3. And people was like, whoa, well, he was writing symphonies when he was like 6. No, he was rewriting his dad's. So he not only did, but he got so from the time of 6 to the time of 3 to the time he was in his early 20s, he had accumulated thousands of hours of work in this field. Right. So and all the work that we know Mozart today, all the great masterpieces, all happened when he was over 25. And so he already accumulated. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. Bill Gates is a great example. He goes into this in the book, really fascinating. Bill Gates happened to live in one of 2 places in the world that had at his access, nearby, walking distance from his house, a computer center where he could actually go and practice programming. Because back then in the 60s, in the early 70s, you couldn't do it. You had to buy time. Even the most preeminent programmers in the world had to wait in line to get time. He was given access whenever he wanted. So by the time he was 19 or 18 when he graduated, he was probably, they suspected he was probably the world's best programmer at that time when he was 18. So no wonder the dude dropped out of college when he's like, this is ridiculous. I already know more than my professors. Like,
that's the one note. Yeah, that's the one note I gotta say is the one note that I know about him. He dropped out of college. It's dropped out of college. And college graduates love Like,
and it's because he was getting nothing of it, and he knew more than his professors, and he knew what he wanted to do. And that's the point Malcolm Gladwell makes, is that opportunity, it's not just intelligence, because he was obviously highly intelligent. Obviously, so was Mozart. He was gifted. But there are so many other people that are this as well. But not all of them become Mozarts. Not all of them become Bill Gateses. There's only a few. And the reason why is because they couple together their ability to do this with opportunity and you know, and all these factors that come into place. But it's this 10,000 hours that I focused on, because I was like, wow, like I thought to myself, this makes a lot of sense to me, because it takes a certain, I've said it for years. People say, what makes a good coach? And I say, well, and I used to say this to people, like, look, man, if they haven't been doing this for at least a decade, forget it, man. Like, you can get some good work from them probably, but you can't think that they're not going to be an expert. I'm sorry, but like, would you hire a doctor that went to medical school that didn't go to medical school? It takes 12 years to get through that shit, right? Like 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of medical school, 2 years of residency, 2 years of internship, 2 years, 4 years of residency, whatever. That's 10, 12 years worth of work. That's you're getting you're way getting your 10,000 hours in. Okay, that's why doctors are doctors. So
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
So, anyways, I formulated like a decade of professional work. And I did the math, so I couldn't help it. I had to do the math. I'm like, okay, well, where do I stand on this? Like, how many hours have I put in this? And I did, and I got my book.
Right.
And I couldn't help it, because I know how good I am, but I've been in this since 34 years. But so I thought maybe I'm close. Maybe I'm close. Like, am I a Mozart, or am I just like some other composer that's like? So it turns out that when I did the math, and it started off slow, my level of master, 65,000 hours, is way beyond 65,000 hours, and it's because I was able to put it in full time. Once I put it in full time and started doing it full time, then all of a sudden you start racking up these hours. It takes 12 or so years if you're doing it 6.5 to 8 hours a day. That's what you need. You got to do it full time for a decade to become a master. And so when you look at people like Mozart, or look at people like composers, or like Van Cliburn, you know, these master of concert pianists, they literally have to be at that piano or practicing for literally 6 to 8 hours a day for a decade. Now that's what it takes. That's what it takes to be a master. Now you can be proficient, and you can be good at far less. But we all want our masters, right? We all want the Michael Jordans and the Steve Jobs of the world to be. That's what we focus. That's what we want to be like. Well, I remind people, like, here's what it takes. It doesn't just take natural ability. That's not what this book really makes it clear, that it's not just natural ability. Phil Heath did not become Phil Heath because of natural ability. He may be called the gift, but it still took some hours. It still took thousands of hours.
And people want to take that away from him, you know, because like even in the Mozart example, when people were saying, oh, well, you know, he must have had this opportunity, or he must have had this, you know, they want to, they don't want to recognize the hard work. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate, you know. But people, I also think people do that because they don't want I think it's easier to take away from someone that's made it than to make it yourself.
And I think it's easy to be critical. It just speaks to the person that's making the criticism. Like, to me, I'm not a big critical person, so I can offer my criticisms when asked about what I think, but I'm almost always couching it in the positive, because I'm just not a critical person. But not because I don't think criticism can be constructive, but because
Right, if it's constructive, but to sit there and just
tear somebody down, like, no, man, like, if I'm going to give a criticism, I'm going to probably give a something that also I feel is admirable. Hey, man, this person's done this, and then all, like, when I get asked to give some feedback from shows, and I judge shows, especially with athletes, they're always like, oh, wow, thanks for this, such a great feedback, because I'll give them usually 2 paragraphs. I'll start with, like, they want to hear all that. I love when I hear people, when athletes say, I want you to break me down. I want you to give me the worst. Like cut it to me straight. Be honest with me. Like, okay, I'll be honest. Here's what I see. You need to work on this. This is what you need to work. If you want to place better, these are things that you need to work on. But I see these wonderful things too, because it's really important to balance the stuff out, I think, because a person can walk away from that going, oh man, maybe I don't have it. Like, no, you have it. What I'm telling you is that you do have it. Everyone's got it.
That's a great way to do it, you know, because I have noticed over the years that, you know, some people will say something like that to the effect of, yeah, break me down, or and they're not emotionally ready to hear like some of the things that, you know, may be said, like maybe, you got to bring up your legs, your back's not there, or, you know what I mean, like your symmetry's not, and they're not ready to hear it. But I think it's great when you say what they may not want to hear, coupled with positive, which they would never expect to hear. Because usually when you want to be broken down, you're just expecting to hear what's missing. You don't expect to hear what you want to hear.
And I think people, it's built within our culture to sort of teach us to like want to hear the bad stuff. Like we think that I want to keep it real. I hear that a lot. Like, let's keep it loud. I'm just trying to keep it real, man. And I always tell them, when I hear that in a conversation, I always say, I have to speak up. I'm like, hey, real negative.
One thing that I think would be like very deep. I haven't really heard it, but I think one thing that would be very deep would be for someone that won the show to get the judges' feedback and say, how could I be even better? That I've never heard of.
Right. I try to give that when I can. This is what but you know what? Very rarely. I did actually a couple of times last year. I got a couple of competitors who won, and they emailed me and said, "Hey, what can I do to be better?" And
wow, that's awesome.
It was mostly women. And
well, you know, not to be sexist, but I've spoken to so many coaches, and they tell me, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I've spoken to a few coaches, and they said that women are so hardcore. They don't question. They do everything to the letter, and sometimes they go above and beyond. It's the guys. This is the
behavioral part of my studies that kicks in. It has to do with our psychology. It has to do with how we enculturate men and women in our society. Women very much are not leaders. I hate to say that. Some can be. It's not to say they don't have the capacity for it, but they're used to taking direction. They're used to somebody saying, "This is what we need to do. Here's your job. Go do this." Men are used to men. What do we learn when we grow up? Be a man. Stand up for yourself. Be a leader.
Right.
You need to forge ahead. You need to be, put your nose to the grindstone. It's all you, baby. It's all you. And so they get out there and they're like, it's all me, man. It's all me. No, motherfucker. It's not all you. We rely on, and I just wrote a post about this a little while ago, that we all rely on so many things for our success. I don't care who you are. I heard, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but I didn't like it. I'll be honest. I didn't like it so after Michael Lockett won at the St. Louis Pro this last year, he looked fantastic and he deserved to win. But he made this post on social media like it was like he did it all by himself. No, man, you didn't do it by yourself. And if you believe that, then you are in for a hard ride for the rest of your life, because we all rely on so many. Now, I know what he meant. Maybe he didn't mean it the way I'm saying it, but the way that I'm saying is that our success, the fabric of our lives is governed by more than just our own efforts. That you and I rely on so much. Like, we couldn't even be doing this interview right now without over millions of people's contribution to technology, to our society, to our government, to everything that enables us to do exactly what we do. And for me to not acknowledge that is me being stupid. It's just me being ignorant of the whole process of my life. And what it does is it fills me with gratitude. And that's the best way I know how to live a life, is a life filled with gratitude. It's hard to have a bad day when you're thankful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
one last thing. I keep saying one last thing, but I think to that end too, though, I think that it's so important too to just really just be good at what you do. One thing I've been hearing a lot of this lately, but they say stay in your own lane, which for me sometimes is hard to do, but it's a good thing.
You make up what your lane is, man.
Yeah.
If you want your lane to be wider, widen your lane, brother.
It's just so hard sometimes not to say, and in fact, I just really think, like you said about the technology, and some of you don't think about like all the things like this conversation here, like 20, even 10 years ago,
wouldn't have happened.
So it's just pretty mind-boggling, but
Or especially with something like the sport now, like I did it, I find it immature when I hear people say, I did this all on my own. Well, no, you didn't.
Right.
Nobody does anything alone. Like we don't live in vacuums.
Yeah, that's just like one of the things I really like about you. I think a lot of people like about you is that you're so aware of your surroundings. I think meditation is probably like a huge factor of that, but you're just very, very like. It's rare. It's something that I would like to be more like. So I think maybe with the meditation, potentially, because I don't meditate, honestly, but I think I would really gain a lot from it.
I think you would, but obviously, when we all come to the things in our life that mean something to us when they do. But I would say you're not doing anything wrong in life. You're getting it all right.
I want to live a happier life, so I think I'm going to try it.
I think you'll like it. I really do. And think of it like very much like weightlifting. Okay, you go to the gym. When you went to the gym for the first time, you didn't expect to be a master at it. Okay, no. Don't expect it. Everyone, when I talk to people, like, oh, I try to meditate, but I just don't think I'm doing it right. I'm gonna fuck it up. I can't concentrate. And I'm like, dude, did you expect to be a master at working out when you first went to the gym? Like, no, of course not. I didn't expect to bench 500 the first time I went to the gym. It took me years before I even came close to that. It's like, neither did I expect to be able to master the quietness and stillness of my mind the first time, even the second time, even the first year of it. No, it's not about getting it right. It's not about doing it perfect. It's about doing it. It's about walking the steps. It's about being a part of this process that aids you. Because no matter how, like one of my clients in California, she used to help other ladies instruct them on meditation stuff. And I called her up when I first started doing this. I said, hey, I'm going to start meditating. I don't want to fuck it up. I'm like, how do I do this? And she gave me the best advice. She said, Tad, you can't fuck it up. She's like, I said, really? She's like, yeah. She says, all you got to do is just, you do it. Some days, some sessions will be better than others. Sometimes you'll be distracted, but that doesn't mean it's like having a good and a bad workout, right? Some workouts are better than others, man. I go in the gym, some workouts I'm like, why did I come in? Was that a good workout?
And I really want to thank you, and I want to thank your listeners' ears, because I told Tad I have to wake up early tomorrow.
Yes.
And the whole plan was to have a short one. This is probably your longest one.
No.
A good hashtag for me would be STFU. Shut up.
I appreciate we're at the 2 hour 24-minute mark. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. I want you to plug your website, strengthaddicts.com.
Yeah, so strengthaddicts.com, that to me is huge. And contest coverage, I got like 20 dates this year. So
we're going to have to find a way to do more stuff together, because I always enjoy your perspective. I find you to be a very cogent person, but most importantly, you're a person of good. I love associating with people that I feel is noble character, and we don't have to know everything or get everything right in life to be noble. And I think you're one of those people, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I hope we do more stuff together. And like I said, contest coverage is so huge. What you used to do at Twitter was so cool, like the play-by-plays. I mean, people love that. I mean, and again, much respect to Dave and for my big break and everything, and everything he does with his shows. But I really believe, I don't care what year it is, it's all about the athletes. It's all about the shows. That's what people want to see. That's the lifeblood of the sport. And what we're doing is awesome too. I think that's great, but I really think contest coverage, I would like to see more press at contest. I get happy. I get happy. People are like, well, you're the only press here, or maybe you and another company. That'd be great. No, I want to see everybody, because competitors deserve it.
The more the better. And you're right. You touched on it earlier in our talk that you like interviewing different athletes and not just the winners. And I think that's so important too. I really do. And I think having people that come to the athletes who resonate with them and who is going to care and going to interview them for their best interests, not for necessarily just for the show or for anybody else, but for their best, because these athletes don't get paid good to do this. Like, some don't even get paid. So it costs them money to do this usually, especially at the amateur level. And one way this is rewarding, and I think it's good to acknowledge that and to be able to highlight that in these interviews and stuff like that. Especially being a competitor myself, being a former competitor myself. So, and then also I think last time I talked to you, you started your own firm or your own law firm? I
have a small office in Middletown, which is like a snooty part of Louisville, but I'm hardly ever there. That's like the New Year's resolution. I've got to do more cases and what kind
of law do you focus on?
So I do immigration and family law.
Oh, perfect person to talk about the wall.
yeah. But I would like to do at some point. I would like to do something like Rick Collins. I talked to Rick Collins, and we had coffee at the Arnold. Not this year, but the year before, and he really got in my ear. He really said I should, like maybe one day we could work on something together. And like he really talked to me about how he has been able to really create a niche for himself in the fitness industry, and he's an amazing lawyer. I mean, he is He's actually president of the Bar Association where he lives. I believe it's Nassau County. I might be mistaken, but he's a superstar. I mean, and he's a bodybuilder. He's not like one of these people that was a bodybuilder and then became a lawyer, and then every once in a while like has a nostalgia trip. He is a bodybuilder, and he was a bodybuilder in law school, and he's a bodybuilder as a lawyer, and it just goes. I think it's huge because he's a huge ambassador of the sport, and he's really, really growing bodybuilding, and a lot of people would not normally expect to see a bodybuilder like as president of a bar association. But that's
we got to break those stereotypes because bodybuilders are just people.
Arnold is the governor. Was the governor of California.
And when he became governor, I remember a couple of years. It was really smart of him to come out a couple of years prior to that, and when he became the U.S. Council for Physical Fitness under George Bush, he came out in a Playboy interview or some interview that said, "Hey, I use steroids. This is what happened, and this is what we all did in the career." And just get it all out. Nobody gives a crap.
Yeah. And let me listen. The guy that Arnold, because Arnold became governor because of a referendum. I think it was I forget.
I remember. All I know is
Davis or something like that. I don't know what his name was, but the guy could mess up boiling water. I mean, the California's and he was a Democrat. But California's economy was in the shitter. Arnold came, and not only did he get elected governor, but he turned it around.
Yeah, man. When he was there, I remember. All I remember is, so my mother said it best. She said, we were talking about Bill Clinton, the Bill Clinton era, and my mother evaluates how the validity of, my mother's very politically aware, the validity of any president or any political party, or especially president, how good is this president? She says, I know how good the president is by how much food I have in my cupboard.
That's a good, yeah.
And she said, during the Clinton era, I had more food and we were more prosperous as a family during that era. And I said, oh, okay, that's a good litmus test. Well, and I say the same thing. Well, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California, I was doing better.
Absolutely, I'm sure of it. And the only thing I'll tell you, if the Constitution won't change, but the Constitution never changes. I really believe it. You're an American. I believe it should be, you should choose to be an American. Like if you're born here, that's great, whatever. You're an American legally. The people that come here and say, I want to be a citizen.
And they take an active role and they take an active part in learning how to become it and wanting it. They have a desire for it. What better kind of citizen do you want as someone who desires it? As a matter of fact, that goes back to Roman times when, and I believe this to be true, that a real republic, because we emulate the republic, right? The Roman Republic, and so we're a republic, and most people don't even know what that means. But I believe in the same Roman idea that true citizenship is earned,
right?
That you earn it. And I'm not saying you have to go take tests, but I'm saying that it's more than just being born in the country.
Sure.
It's
and some people believe, that that's the ultimate title to have, even above president, as citizen. To be part of that. To really should. And I'd be honest with you, if that having to be born in America thing went away, every country in the world that I know of has it, unfortunately. But Arnold would be president in a second, and both parties would want him because he's not really a hardcore Republican.
It was like I don't know if it was real or not, but it sounded like Dwayne Johnson might run for president.
Who knows?
Who knows,
and
man?
Kid Rock is running for Senate, possibly in Michigan. I don't know, but
that makes me nervous. But I don't know. I don't know. He's probably a nice guy. I don't know him.
Yeah. Well, the one that's probably a nice guy too. What would make me nervous would be like Ted Nugent. You know what I mean? Like
the Nuge, man. I like the Nuge, man. He's like a. I don't know if he's a vegetarian. He's like all this progressive stuff.
Oh, he hunts a lot, but he's progressive. Yeah. The one that I like too, he's a bit of a conspiracy nut though, but I love Jesse Ventura. But he's a little bit of a conspiracy nut. But I mean,
he's the governor of Minnesota, right?
Minnesota, yeah. And then he's not a bodybuilder in the sense that he competed in bodybuilding, but he had the bodybuilding physique. You know what I mean?
He looks so old now. Gosh, he looks so old now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of got beat up a little, but I love Jesse Ventura. I thought he was awesome.
He was great. But I mean, honestly though, but what Rick's doing, and it got me thinking too, because Rick does a lot of criminal defense too, which I don't think I would do, but in the bodybuilding situation, some of the laws that we have, though, honestly, like, I don't know.
Well, first of all, the steroids is scheduled all wrong.
It's ridiculous.
It's scheduled all wrong.
It's a hormone that testosterone is a hormone found in the human body.
That's right. Well, if every man should be in prison because we make it endogenously.
And it's really crazy too because I like to think that our government, going back to like protecting the people, that you like to think that the government and I'm not condoning any illegal activity. I'm just saying that there are certain things that really, marijuana, for example, should never have been in the same category as cocaine.
Not even close.
Anabolic steroids I don't know of anybody that's ever died of anabolic steroids. Anybody. I mean, pre-existing conditions aside. I mean, because if you have a predisposition of dying of heart disease, maybe steroids could accelerate that. But steroids alone have not killed anybody that I know.
So will Big Macs and lots of sugar in your diet. So and that'll do it faster.
Right.
There's so many things. So nobody's looking out for our health. It's not. Right. I don't believe that health thing. Those things are not a good case to build.
Right. And here in Kentucky, when I moved here from Michigan, here in Kentucky and in southern Indiana, there's syringes everywhere. Everybody's hooked on heroin.
Kratom. Wow, why?
Yeah, kratom. I don't know, but kratom could actually get people off of opiates.
Absolutely. I just had
It's totally natural, and they're trying to kill it. Trying to make it illegal.
I just had my last podcast that I did a couple of days ago I had a premium kratom supplier, and we talked about this whole issue, and it is such a good thing that I'm glad that it's still legal here, but they were really, like you said, they were trying to take it off the market.
Really trying. Yeah, they were really, really trying.
And it's because they think people are trying to get high on it. And if that's the worst that people do is try to get high on something, I don't care. It's not like they're going out there. I don't care. What I do care about is that it's solving some opiate addiction issues. Methadone, that is not.
People get hooked on methadone, in fact, Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious. I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
No. Who's Sid Vicious?
The bass player of the Sex Pistols.
Oh.
Yeah. He went back to using heroin.
Because it was better for me.
Right, but then he still had to use methadone. He was hooked on and then there's another one called Suboxone.
Yeah, that's horrible.
That's also, they all have opiates in them. You know what I mean?
Well, they're so potent and they're so addictive. They're they grip your life.
Big pharma is what I think is trying to kill kratom.
Well, of course, because they can't make any money off of it, and they make money off of these other things. Like Florida is a great example of how they're trying to the opiate community, big pharma in the opiate community is really lobbying against the marijuana because it can give people up pain meds. It could really take a bite out of there. And man, that's why I say, and this is off the topic of what we were talking about before, that pharmaceuticals and the medical industry should be not for profit.
Exactly, but that goes back to. You're right, and that goes back to what we had said hours ago about the best ideas winning and how the best ideas can't win because of the fact that you have to be heard, be seen on TV, you know what I mean, and then of course the money, and big pharma pumps so much money into these two parties that these two parties show their appreciation by these kangaroo studies that they do. Where they say that your teeth will fall out from steroids, or you become a kratom addict or whatever, whatever. And they're not the studies like the one that you did with the basketball and the visualization. We had a control group here and test group here. No, these are studies where you have a bunch of basically prostitutes and lab coats, and they just say whatever big pharma wants to hear. And
they're manufacturing the results.
Right, and the same way that big pharma, the pharmaceutical industry should not be for profit. I think the same thing with healthcare. I mean, the only reason why hospitals are charging $15 for a Tylenol is because the insurance companies are in cahoots with them, and it's all I hate to sound like Dorian, because Dorian is a real conspiracy nut, but the thing is, sometimes you have to be a conspiracy nut because what you're being sold is bullshit.
Well, yeah, exactly. I have him on my show next week. I'll probably talk.
He's
to him.
Awesome.
I love.
I don't agree with everything, but he's got some insights.
I do. I'm most interested in talking about meditation and about ayahuasca journeys and all that kind of stuff that he has done and that I'm interested in. So it's pretty fun. But hey, Christian, hey man, I know it's getting late, man. I know you got to get up early.
Thank you.
I totally appreciate you coming on, and we'll do it again. And next time I want to talk a little bit. Next time I want to have you on, and we'll talk maybe about some law stuff because I'm really interested in this kind of stuff. It's kind of
we'll always have something to talk about. So
of course. Well, will you be at the Arnold this year, the Arnold Classic?
Possibly. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, and this sounds really messed up, but so this year I was at the Arnold working with Iron Mag Labs, but this sounds messed up, but I'm just gonna be honest, because it's about honesty, right? I used to go to the Arnold just because, I don't know, not just because, I don't know, without Rich Piana there, it just didn't, I don't know, there was just something about him, he just really, we did an interview every year, and I got to talk to him, and I got to talk to a lot of people, but Michael O'Hearn too, but I just felt maybe it was because it was the first year that he wasn't there, but I felt kind of empty there this year. I don't know, it was strange, but I'll probably go, Matt Loers, and Bob Lorimer. They do a fantastic job. And Arnold does a great job riding around the golf cart too, and because he doesn't really do that much at the Arnold, even though it's a show. But yeah, I might go. But I also a really big thank you. I mean, you had John De La Rosa here, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath tomorrow, Dorian. I mean, to have me on, I just hey
man,
you so much.
I have no prejudice against anybody in this industry when it comes to.
No, but I mean, those are super heavy hitters. So thank you.
As soon as I like I said, I believe everyone has importance in this life, and you have a valuable contribution that I value, and I appreciate you as a friend, and I appreciate you as a contributor in the industry. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. And get some rest. I hope you get up early. Right. I hope you're able to get up. All right, this is another edition. We're out.
Handle your high with Tadayoshi.